Good morning, wherever you may be around the globe, in the chat room, wherever you are. This broadcast is coming at you live from the East Coast of these United States, the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina. And again, I welcome you all. Tonight, folks, we'll be talking a bit on the paranormal side. And you'll be welcome to call in with questions or comments or even stories tonight if you wish. We've got Becky Pourchot joining us. And I think I'm pronouncing it right. We'll see, right? Becky Pourchot, and her book is That's So Bizarre. I'm sorry. She's a paranormal author. Her show is That's So Bizarre. She actually does... she's the host of a radio show that's called That's So Bizarre. That's interesting. So she must cover a whole bunch of really interesting paranormal type topics, because that's what we're talking about a bit tonight with her. I do have the links up on the homepage of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. The LateNightInTheMidlands.com and the LNMRadioNetwork.com are now one. They are a collective consciousness now. Those two are together. So no matter which one you go to, it will bring you to that site. So our new site, which I'm very, 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 very happy with, and I understand that a lot of you are too, and I'm glad to hear that. Becky, she's got a few books out there. I think something like 5 or 6 books out there. We'll ask her about those when we talk to her. I know the book that we will be discussing with her tonight, I believe, is called Souls. For some reason it is missing in my Open Souls. There it is. Yeah, so the book is Open Souls, and obviously, as you can tell, I haven't read it yet, although I have read inserts, and I've been on the websites and all that good stuff, and so I've done my due diligence. So we will be talking about that tonight. You can call in at 803-317-2264, or you can call in using our Skype ID, and you can hit us at Late Night in the Midlands, and we'll bring you on that way. But we're not taking calls obviously yet. We'll do that later on, well after the guest and I have gone a couple rounds. I get this email today. It's just, these people have been, since this net neutrality whole deal came out, right? These people, I don't know, I didn't sign up for their little mailing list or any of that, so it's obviously, in my opinion, some type of COINTEL operation. And what they do is, right after that happened, the net neutrality, all right, I had showed my anger towards it, my discomfort towards it on the air and on the website. And then it was about right that time I started getting these emails from these idiots, these morons. Let's see here. Oh, what do we call these morons? freepress.net. freepress.net. And don't go there, folks. Don't even waste your time. I'm telling you, don't go there. But these people, they start sending me these emails. Michael Vera, you must have heard the great news. The FCC's ruling stands, and blah, blah, blah. And they're going on like this is a great thing. Like, I should pop the bubbly and we should start dancing and, hooking arms and doing that little dance around the wooden floor, And really, it felt like in your face. Well, I told them off, and I unsubscribed, and then I get another one. And so I have unsubscribed again, but they say now they're crying. I'm gonna get a little boo because net neutrality has been sued. They said the cable and phone companies and their assorted trade associations have filed 10 lawsuits. Designed to topple the rules. Oh, they mean the control is what they're saying. And there's a ton of money beside these legal challenges. We can't outspend our industry opponents. Good, COINTEL. We're glad to hear that. Thank you for admitting that you are being defeated. You are losing the battle. I promise you. You're not going to win. If every one of us wind up as dead bodies and living souls, then that's the way it'll have to be, because nobody's giving in to you. Nobody's giving into your tyranny. Nobody's giving in to any of this. So you might as well forget it. You think you'll get control of the internet. You only have control as long as we allow you to have control. When enough people turn off their television, and it's happening. I'll get to that. I've got something about that too. But when enough people turn off their televisions and they start getting annoyed, and they're even half as annoyed as I am, well, then it's on. It's on like, how do they say it here in the South? It's on like a pot of neck bones, is I think how they put it. They say, we can't outspend our industry opponents. I mean, this just makes me happy to read this, because these morons are getting what they got coming. But they asked me to please donate. I mean, come on. I've already told these morons how I feel. And if you want to tell them how you feel, hey, they emailed me, so I'll give it out. It's info@freepress.net. Go send them an email and tell them what I told them. I actually saluted them and told them they were number one, and I used my middle finger to do it. So, there it is. But they're happy. They says, oh, you got to help us defend the FCC's rules in court. Why would anybody send me something like this? Come on, you would know better, right? So I have to assume that this is just trying to rub something in here. Well, and they said that they're going to continue. This is what they said. They will continue to file complaints whenever and wherever the ISPs abuse their power online. That includes me. When I say something they don't like, they will continue to file complaints. Well, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep it up. If it'll keep you busy and keep you out of my way, then go for it. Hey, does George Stephanopoulos, this is one of those names, I mean, he probably hates his parents, discloses $75,000 contribution to the Clinton Foundation. This is, I'm going somewhere with this. This guy, he is an anchor, chief anchor for ABC News, George Stephanopoulos, or however the heck you say it. I don't watch the fake news, so I wouldn't know. He's given $75,000 to Clinton Foundation in the recent years. And, this is disturbing, folks, but it proves what we always say. The mainstream media is bought and, yes, that's right, paid for. Charitable contributions, they say, that he did not publicly disclose while reporting on the Clintons and their nonprofit organization. And so he's reporting on this. He's getting interviews with the Clintons, and he's acting like he's going to ask the tough questions. Meanwhile, he's donating, giving them $75,000. There you go. Just more. And you can find this on News and Discoveries on LateNightInTheMidlands.com or the LNMRadioNetwork.com. Either or. Choice is yours. But there you go. Just another case, another piece to the puzzle for those of you who will not wake up and will not understand that the mainstream media is absolutely bought and paid for. There is no truth there. You have to take what they give you, and you've got to be really good, and you've got to derail it. You've got to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and you might find something there, but not much. And so there they are. They've got business deals with these media people. They own them. They absolutely own them. They own the media. They don't own us, though. That's why we'll tell you about it. Saudi Arabia vows to match Iran's nuke capability. Oh, and by the way, Jordan turns to China. Those are a couple of headlines you won't actually find on LateNightInTheMidlands.com, but you can find them over on the Drudge Report. I was just looking. It's not worth reporting on. It's nothing you don't already know. Most of it's propaganda. They're getting prepared for the big one here, folks, and they want to make it look good. The stakes are high, and the stage is loaded. Remember that. Marines practice riot control for future American civil unrest. The footage shows troops taking on protesters. Now, I watched this today, and it's just kind of sickening to me. And if this is their practice, they're going to get wiped out on the battlefield, really. I mean, because it looked pathetic. It really did. But nevertheless, they're doing it. They're practicing, getting up the cages and controlling the masses. I'm hearing that riots are getting planned for Cleveland and places like that. Folks, don't be stupid. Don't do it. If you really want to do that, how about we all come together and we take care of the real criminals here instead of fighting with each other? Because I'm not going to fight with you. I'm going to lock and load. That's what I'm going to do. So I just assume that don't happen. So, I would recommend people waking up, turning off your fake news like a lot of people are, and let's start coming together and let's get rid of the real threat to our freedom. It's not you. It's not the black man. It's not the white man. It's not the Hispanic man. No. It's down there in Washington, D.C., folks. That's where it is. That's where it starts for us anyways. That's where we've got to take that back before we can move on to other bigger and better things. They say that fears of Marshall scenario are reaching new heights amid the massive buildup leading into Jade Helm 2015. From troops patrolling residential neighborhoods to dirty bomb simulations. And look, folks, as you know, and if you don't want to hear this, then turn us off and go listen to George Norrie. Okay, you'll be a little more pleasant there. You get a lot of ad time, so you'll have time to wipe your tears away. But I mean, here's the God's honest truth for you all, and that is that they are preparing for something big, and we are the enemy. We the people are the enemy. There is no foreign enemy. It's domestic this time, and it's you and me. So anyways, and remember, when they do these drills, most times things happen. I mean, look at 9/11. There's so many others that we could go through, but I don't want to take up the whole show with this because I think we're going to get into bigger and better things like the soul, the afterlife here shortly. So, I don't want to get too worked up, but yeah, they're doing it. These realistic military drills are being seen at previously unheard levels. Well, I have heard. I knew. Cap, back when he was trucking and he was getting information for us, back, about 4 years ago, it might be now, 3 or 4 years ago. And he went and he talked to a bunch of people on his route. And believe me, we knew this was coming for a long time. Not so-called Jade Helm, but that, it was going to come down to, or at some point, the troops are going to have a decision to make. They're either going to fire on their own people or they're not. And I hope to God that they make the right decision, because if they don't, I promise you, we'll win. There's millions of us, and even those of you who have not woke up yet, when you see the bullets fly and you see the bodies on the street, you'll wake up. It'll be a rude awakening, but you'll wake up. You'll see, you'll be like, oh my God, those guys aren't conspiracy theorists. Holy smokes. They were telling the truth. I thought it was all entertainment. See? There you go. Don't think. Find out the truth. Giant asteroid safely miss Earth today. I don't know if it's already gone by or not. I think it has. But this thing's gone by apparently safely, or if it's not, I think it has already. I'm pretty sure it did. But remember last time an asteroid passed by safely, Russia got hit by a comet. So, we might be out of the woods yet. Wait till we wake up in the morning, and then let's look at the paper. Well, what's today's date, though? Yeah, it's the 14th. That would be today. So, we'll see. See what happens. Everybody get your tinfoil hats on, because you might have a comet coming through like last time. Death in your state. Map shows most distinctive causes. This is interesting. This is up on News and Discoveries on LateNightInTheMidlands.com as well. It says the most common killers in the United States are well known: heart disease and cancer. Obviously, it's from all the crap that's being put in the food and the water. I mean, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into that right now. If you don't know, well, you better ask somebody. But there are other less common causes of death that are actually more typical in certain states compared to with the entire nation. There's a map there, and it'll show you what the common cause of death in your state is. I find it interesting. I don't know how much you could believe it, but it's there. I mean, I don't know. It's probably true. It's got South Carolina as heart disease, and I believe that because that's why they've got I think they got one of the number one heart hospitals in the country here, if I remember correctly. I don't really keep track of the hospitals and their ratings. You don't even look at that stuff until you're in there, and at that point, you have no choice. You're under their will. All right, here's the one I've been waiting to get to. Trust in mainstream media plummets. Only 2% of young adults trust the media. See, that means that we're doing our job here. That means that, all of you host all these shows who are out there giving the truth, the truthful ones, not the BS ones. For all of you, pat yourselves on the back because we're making a dent. Only 2% of young adults trust the media. And, this wasn't a nationwide poll. However, it was 3,000 people between the ages of 18 and 29. And they found that only 2% of them believe that the media can be trusted to do the right thing. Now, hopefully, some of those 2% have accidentally tuned in tonight and they're listening because they want something to laugh at. And then at some point it's going to click in. They're going to be like, oh my God. And the smile will be wiped off their face and they'll take it a little more serious. That's what we hope. The poll found that 88% of those polled think that the media only sometimes or never does the right thing. Go it never, because that's the right answer. In fact, a whopping 39% said the media never does the right thing. This places the media in last place behind Congress, Wall Street, and the federal government in terms of trust. And that's right where they should be, because the media was supposed to be for the people, by the people. But it's not. They lie to us. They've took the buyout. They've gone for the big chair, if you will. So, they got money in their pockets. They don't need to tell us the truth. And that's what they're doing. So, it's good to see that people are finally waking up. That makes me happy because now I go to the break and I don't feel like quitting. It's like I actually want to come back because we're making a difference, not just this show, but all the shows like this that are out there giving the truth. We're getting there. We're starting to keep turning it off. Don't watch Fox News. Don't watch CNN. Don't watch MSNBC until you're completely awake. Then you could peek at it to see what lies they're telling. But be careful, because it is mind control. It is brainwashing. And if you're not aware, it will get you. It will get you. It's just like that pedophile, how he knows how to talk to the child and get the child's trust, and then he takes it. That's what the media will do to you, so be careful. I'm Michael Vera. This is Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. We've got coming up here Becky, Pourchot, and we're going to discuss some bizarre things. How about that? Some paranormal, and I don't know. We'll be getting into a few different areas, I have a feeling. So, folks, hang on with us, and we'll be right back. And make sure you join us in our chat room on the chat and listen page at latenightinthemidlands.com or the LNM or LNM Radio Network.com. We'll be back. Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an LNM subscriber can be found at the top of latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you.
Hello, this is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. You've heard Dr. Leonard Horowitz and experts urge you to avoid deadly vaccinations and illegal operators selling stolen OxySilver and OxySilver copycats. You've heard experts tell you about suppression in alternative medicine and confusing propaganda in healthcare and the truth movement. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver, Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Including OxySilver, the world's most powerful silver hydrosol. Electro-energized to put risky injections, toxic antibiotics, and deadly drug pushers out of business. OxySilver is covalently bonded to water. Unlike any other silver product using the frequency of chlorophyll 528, what Dr. Horowitz explains is pure tone love, the universal healer. NASA originally developed covalently body silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and more. OxySilver works three ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything, far better than all leading silver products, and without any risk. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with two P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll-free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com.
And as we have been programmed mentally, intellectually, one must be aware of this being programmed like a computer.
Programming that we are constantly assaulted by throughout our life conditions us. It programs us to a particular worldview.
The project is literally the secularization of the world. New secular or worldly order.
A new study says the news media have been pushing a gospel of godlessness on the American public.
Because this media is here and designed to make sure that they ask no critical questions. To make sure that the only thing that they are concerned about is having a good time. And so that is why today, one of the struggles that you have as young people, that when you want to do different events and you want to talk about real issues, you have the struggle of many of your peers who've been so conditioned in this matrix that they would rather party than listen to the truth. They would rather party and shop and go to the mall than to stand up for issues of justice. They're stuck in the matrix. But you have the responsibility of helping to wake them up.
Now, how do we know that there's a God? After having been thoroughly brainwashed, and how do we know that there's a creator?
Shown you eyes are no longer open. They tell me you are dead. The doctor said you fight hard. You gave it all you had. You left us all so quickly, and in our hearts was sad. Well, leave us now, my darling. Well, leave us now, my friend. You've only started living to find the living end. In other words, we'll meet soon, if God so makes his way. We'll teach lost souls to praise love, like you did to us each day. Your flesh is cold and pale now, but your mind, it lives on. We'll all grieve your absence. Your impressions were so strong. Well, leave us now, my darling. Well, leave us now, my friend.
All right, folks, we are back. This is
You've only
Late Night in the Midlands.
started
I'm Michael Vera, and that is very
Find the living end.
Bear in our chat room, and that song is incredible. How he is not on the front of some album cover somewhere, and, you know, growing his hair to his buttocks and playing before hundreds of thousands of people, I do not know. See how easily talent gets overlooked? Now, I'm assuming talent was overlooked. His albums might be out there, and I don't know it, but I'll tell you what, they should be. They should be, because that is just a fantastic job. Very talented. He's lucky I don't live near him. I'd be bugging him to play and sing for me all the time. He'd wind up moving. But, folks, tonight, let me tell you a little bit about my guest. 803, by the way, 803-317-2264. That is the number to call in when we take calls. If you decide you want to call, because you could also ask questions in our chat room over on LateNightInTheMidlands.com on our chat and listen page. You'll see, you can't miss it. Big red button flashing right up at the top there. Click that sucker. Take you right over, and you private message me the questions. So PM. And if you don't know how, ask one of our moderators. They'll tell you how to do it. But make sure any questions you ask me relate to the show. You know, I'm not going to have a conversation with you. I don't do that. I'm not one of those, well, I won't even get into that. Anyways, paranormal author, and that's So Bizarre host, Becky M. Pourchot. She was a writer before she knew she was a writer. She is an author. She's got several books. She was the kid who could tell scary stories at a Halloween party, giving everyone goosebumps. Well, that's going to be really good, see? The next day, proudly make her family laugh at the dinner table. In her debut book, I Look Better in a Binary, Becky draws on her childhood experiences as a Jewish kid growing up in the Midwest to create a collection of short stories that are at once hilarious and touching. Becky credits her family, her friends, and one special teacher for the encouragement she needs to become the writer she is today. And we're going to bring her on with us, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the dark side, I think. We've talked in the past about the dark side of cyberspace. So we're going to talk about the dark side of it all a little bit here tonight, too. So we'll be going in several directions. You might want to call in. Now, let's get her on the line here with us. We've got, there we go.
Hello.
Good evening, Becky. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. This is Michael Vero with Late Night in the Midlands, and we are live, and I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about this and having a nice conversation about the paranormal, the dark side. Your background, I guess, at first would be really good. And let me ask you, are you on a speakerphone by chance?
I am not. No, I'm not. Does it sound like that?
A little bit, but I think it's okay. I mean, it's not bad. I'm just
okay.
It sounded a little bit like it, but we're good. So yeah, a little bit of background. What got you going in this direction? And tell us a little bit about the books that you've written, because you've got more than one here, right? You've got what, 5?
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I guess, I started out just freelancing, and I would, basically write whatever articles I was interested in, whatever articles the editors I pitched to would be, excited about. And it was really a fun gig because basically I was just writing what I wanted, and getting paid for it. So I did that for a number of years, probably about 8 years. And during that time, one of my fascinations has always been ghosts. And I would always think, well, how can I work in this ghost thing into my stories? How can I get paid to write about ghosts? And most of these were, mainstream newspapers and magazines. So I thought, well, what can I do? And then I thought, well, it's almost Halloween time. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be fun if I just brought in like a paranormal investigator into some old building, and we went around and looked for ghosts, and I wrote the story about that. And I pitched this to an editor at a local magazine or newspaper in Middleton, Wisconsin, and he said, yeah, go for it. So that was my first exploration into, ghost hunting. And from that, after that year, unfortunately, I had to wait till Halloween every year to do another one, but every year I would do one, and I think I did 3, maybe 4 of them. And that kind of got me going into the paranormal.
And, it's a fascinating area to go. And, I cover it a lot here. I do as much as I can because there's always so much going on in the news that I can't always just focus on that. But on nights like tonight when I can, I really enjoy talking about it because it's real. There is this other realm. There's something there. I've had experiences. I mean, I've had a visitation. I've had out-of-body experiences. None of it by my control. I'm not no, wizard or any of that stuff. But so I know, and I know science will say, well, it's a chemical in the brain. I don't believe that, not one bit. It's just, you just know.
Once you've had those experiences, and the people that I've talked to over the years, once you've had that experience, it's like, this is more than just kind of a chemical fluke. Like something's happening to these people. And, we could talk later about my show, That's So Bizarre, but I've interviewed a number of people who have had, 2 people witness the same thing. I've heard that a lot. So it's like, that's not a chemical in the brain. If 2 people look at each other and go, did you just see that? you know?
Yeah, exactly. And these are the things that, it's the stuff that is unexplained. I mean, let's face it, a lot of it can be accounted for. You get relatives who will tell you stories, and, and sometimes, yes, it is the draft coming through the window or these types of things, but,
right.
But there are those more than rare, I don't even want to say rare because it's not rare, but those occasions when you cannot explain it away, and those are the ones that interest me the most.
Right, and that I was going to say that first guy that I brought out with me, he was a paranormal investigator. His name's Noah Voss, and he lives in the middle or the Madison, Wisconsin area. When I took him out, we went out and he had all of his, different equipment and everything, and we didn't find anything, which was fine because I was in it just for the adventure to get to talk about ghosts like we're doing tonight. And then I asked him, I said, so like, have you ever seen a ghost? And, you think, okay, this guy's been doing this for 15 years. He's out in the field. He's looking for this stuff. He's going to the most haunted houses and the most haunted locations around the country, basically. And he said, I've never seen anything, and I've never even seen anything that really, that I couldn't disprove. And after he said that, I went home and I was kind of disillusioned. I thought, really? So here's this guy, here's this expert, and he's not seeing anything. And I, it was fascinating. So I've gone through periods of my life where I'm like, no, this is all BS, And then I've gone through periods where I'm like, no, this makes sense. And I'm at a point now, I don't think I'm ever going back to that. The amount of stories I've heard,
So have you had any experiences of your own that, are out there? I mean, outside of I feel like somebody's in the room with me, but, I get that sometimes.
Right. Well, it's funny because I think maybe part of what intrigues me about this is because I really haven't had any really good experiences. I mean, once my husband and I were out taking a walk at night, and we saw this orb, it wasn't on a photograph, and we actually saw this, it was almost like a fairy just kind of zip by us, and it was winter, so there were no bugs, it wasn't snowing. Both of us saw it, and neither of us have any explanation at all. But, that to me, I'm like, yeah, that's not, whatever. My favorite story that I tell is when I was about 8 years old, I decided I wanted to kind of entertain my brother and the neighbor girl, so I had them come into our bathroom that's completely dark, and I turned on a little nightlight, and I pretended like I was some kind of gypsy medium channeling, the other world, and it was all just play and dramatics. And I said, and I had this gypsy accent. I'm like, oh, great spirits, if you're here, give us a sign. And right as I said that, the little nightlight flickered and then went out. And of course, being 8-year-old kids, we went running out of there. And it turns out the whole power in the entire house went out after I had said those words. So, I mean, it could have been, again, it's one of those things. Well, it could have just been really great, crazy timing, but I don't know. I think that's always stuck with me, that question of well, what happened? Did I summon spirits? Can people do that?
Well,
I don't know.
You know what? I think that was a sign. I think you got that sign to keep you interested in it because, see, you're so open about it. I mean, you're bound to have an experience. If you're as open, I mean, you seem to be very open about it, so...
Right.
I think that's the biggest blocker is people themselves. The people who say, now that don't exist, and they'll make an excuse up for, I mean, the ghost could pick them up and throw them across the room, and they'll, swear that, it was the shirt they were wearing and the draft that came through.
Right. And you see, people rationalize both ways. They rationalize that, oh, no, this doesn't happen, and some people rationalize, oh, this does happen, and, it's fascinating to me, and I tell you, it's just the stories that I've heard lately from very, I used to think it was all the kooks who you see the people interviewed on TV, and you're like, oh yeah, they're crazy or they're doing this to be on TV.
Right.
But my friends have experienced stuff. Real normal, rational guys have these amazing stories to tell, and you're like, okay, they're not making it up.
Yeah, exactly. You know, well, for me, I mean, I believed it well before. I mean, I was well open to it before I had any experience. But my first experience was as a child. I don't know, I was about 9, 10 years old. It was an out-of-body experience. And, of course, as a kid, it was a little, I won't say scary, because I don't remember being scared, but I remember, I guess, a little bit, like thinking, oh, crap, you know, I thought I died or something, or I fell into this other dimension. I mean, that's the way I've thought since I was a kid. And,
right.
You know, but I didn't understand it until I had another one shortly after that, and I didn't understand these until I became an adult and started listening to, I guess, Art Bell and things like that, and I listened and I heard people tell their stories. I'm like, well, that's what happened to me. So,
right, and you hear it and it clicks. It's like, oh, like they explain it exactly how it happened to you, and you're like, oh, this is a thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's, you know, and you find out that there's so many other people, and yeah, you're going to get your fibbers or your storytellers or somebody who drank a little too much that night. You're going to get those, but I think probably 95% of people in the paranormal world are telling the truth. With their experiences, right. Whether it was a ghost or not, they're honest. They believe it was something paranormal, and they're telling you the truth. So, right. I think, anyways.
Right. So I'm curious, what was your 9-year-old experience?
Well, I had woke up in the middle of the night. It was somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning, I guess. And I woke up and I got out of bed, and I was trying to get out of the room to go to the bathroom, and I went to open the door, and the door that leads out into the hallway was blocked. I couldn't leave. And I'm thinking, well, what the heck is that? So, you know, I don't know. I'm just a kid. So I go and I open the closet door thinking, well, maybe my mind's gone or something. So I open it, and it's still same thing, blocked. I couldn't leave the room. And I turned around and I looked, and I was still laying in the bed. So I thought, uh-oh. Oh, cool. And I was trying to wake my brother up, because I shared a room with my brother, my older brother. And, I mean, I was giving him everything I've got, and I couldn't, my hands would stop at him, but I couldn't budge him. I couldn't shake him. And at one point, wow, I did it hard enough where he got a little shaken. He went, go back to bed. And he never opened his eyes and looked at me, and I walked around that room for probably 15, 20 minutes screaming for my mom and dad. Neither one of them could hear me, and not screaming hysterically, but just thinking, you know, couldn't understand what was going on. And, right. But then all of a sudden I just got sucked. It's like it got light in the room, and I just got sucked back into my body. And of course I wake up, you know, the body, you sit up and you think, what just happened? But now I know what happened. I mean, and it happened again. Probably 3 or 4 months after that. I had switched rooms because I thought it was some kind of ghost thing going on in that bedroom. So I switched bedrooms, and it happened to me again. So it was a little scary, but
were you afraid to go to bed at night?
Yeah, at that point, you know, oh God, that was on my mind a lot. I'm thinking, geez, you know, because I don't know what was happening. I mean, as a kid, you're thinking, you know, yeah, for all I know, I could have been getting sucked into an alien ship because I couldn't leave. Right. So, yeah. So it was just really strange. And to this day, I think that's what was happening. It was an out-of-body experience. And, I mean, because... Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the show that I have is called That's So Bizarre, and you can actually find it at thatsobizarre.com. It's on YouTube, and I started just, you know, maybe 4 months ago, and it's just really taken off. And basically what it is it's an interview show where each week, every Wednesday, I call it Weird Wednesday, I feature a new person that I interview who has had some kind of unexplainable occurrence in their life, and they just sit with me and tell the story. And what's happened is over time now I'm collecting all of these interviews, and they're like about, you know, I try to keep them no more than 10 minutes so you can watch them at a sitting, and you get to see over time all these people and their stories, and they're very real, and it's a very kind of raw, honest show. There's not a lot of like high tech anything at this point, but really you're just hearing these stories, and you know, when I flip through, when I go on YouTube and I look at my list, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so easy to find these people. I mean, it's like I barely even have to work for it. These people are coming to me with their stories.
So, from all the stories that you, and by the way, if you ever decide to do a 30-minute or 1 hour show and you want syndication, let us know. We'd run it on our station.
Okay.
we love the
Great.
subject, so you know, something to think about.
Cool.
But
Okay.
Based on all your research, what do you think is going on? What's happening? And of course, I want to get into that dark side at some point too. But what's going on?
You know what? I haven't gotten that far. That's like, I kind of feel like I'm so new with this, collecting this information, and I think so far what I feel is there's a lot of different stuff going on. My hunch with the ghost stuff is that some of it is maybe like actually dead people, and a lot of people do have those kind of stories, you know, like a true ghost. But I think some of it is interdimensional. I think things, you know, when people talk about like their microwave turning on in the middle of the night, that's not, in my mind, necessarily a dead person turning on a microwave. I think things are happening interdimensionally, and I don't, you know, I haven't really researched it that much. But I think there's just so many, you know, different things that we don't understand.
Do you think that, because there's some people who believe that we can cause paranormal activity ourselves, with the power of our mind that we don't even understand?
That's one of my. I was just reading a guy probably about 6 months ago, and I the book was on my Kindle and it disappeared, and I don't know who he was or anything. He's actually out of St. Augustine, and he's a professor, and he did a lot. He was one of those people that would go to people's houses if there was kind of like a ghost problem, and he said in his research what he found. Most of the time, it was something, he found it was usually coming from the people themselves. Like, if you could explain it like, the wind with a branch on the window or something, it was most often, you know, actually like psychokinetic energy, that people were actually making this stuff move themselves. And when I mentioned that to people who've told me their ghost stories, people don't like to hear that. They don't want to hear that, it's really just you've got this crazy energy that's causing this stuff. People want to think it's external.
Well, see, I'll listen to somebody who says that, but then I want them to prove it to me. And they'll say, well, prove that it was a ghost. Like, I'm not trying to prove to you it's a ghost. I'm telling you what happened. You're trying to explain it away. So if you've got the answers, show me the evidence. So because I'd love to solve it.
Right, and you know, at this point, we just don't know enough about this, and our culture is so anti-spiritual realm. I mean, there's religion, there's a lot of religious people, but I think this is something on a different level than that. We're so rational. We're so freaking rational, and it's wonderful that we're rational. Is how science works, but unfortunately, I think that that other realm is so misunderstood, or it's just unclear to us because we don't venture into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, there's days, I mean, if my neighbors could see me through the window sometimes, they would think I'm nuts. Maybe they do look. But, I mean, I've stared at things, and I've tried to, because I've seen videos where people have moved things with their mind, and I've tried it, and maybe my mind's just not built that way, but there's been no soda cans flying through the room here.
I know a lot of that stuff is magic tricks. I have a friend who's a mentalist who is very much opposed to any kind of, you know, he does not believe in anything paranormal, and he is able to do things that if you watch him, I mean, people really do think that he's got powers. I mean, but he will tell you it's not. This is just all tricks, and I think we have to be wary when we're as open-minded people and people who want to believe. We have to be aware that we are also vulnerable to people who are just totally tricking us, you know. And I think a lot of that psychokinetic stuff you see on TV, I think a lot of it is tricks. But I'm not saying that means it's not, that psychokinesis isn't real. It's just we have to be aware of, you know, that that people can fool us.
And I always keep in mind a story my father used to tell me, a quick story. He would tell me, he'd say, I remember reading in the comic books. He said, Flash Gordon going to the moon. He said, it was all comics. You never thought it would ever be possible. He says, then years later, bam, we go to the moon. So, what's just a big comical story today could definitely be, reality tomorrow. So you never know. I mean, and then you look at these people. I've seen these. I think it's in Asia where they'll go and they won't hit somebody, but they'll stop close to them and they actually knock the person on their butt. And so they're connecting with some kind of energy. I think is it called chi or something like that. I don't know what it is, but so with that, I mean, where are they getting that from?
Right, exactly.
So what?
Exactly. Yeah, I used to do that too. I'll still do that every once in a while, where you try to move something. Like I'll just be sitting on the couch and I don't want to get up, and I'll just watch it, and you're like, "Come on!" It's like, and you really believe it, because that's what they say is that you have to truly believe it. So like, okay, I believe I can move this, and it still doesn't move.
Yeah, I've done that, and I stare at it, and I say, I know it's going to work because nobody's here to witness it. And I'm thinking, well, that'll lift it up, right? No, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays there. I have to actually get up and get it.
Right.
So
yeah.
So the whole paranormal thing. I mean, obviously, when we die. I mean, and of course, again, this is something I can't prove, but it's been proven to me. I mean, it's not even that I believe it. I've experienced this kind of thing, that there is this other, is it another dimension? Some people call it heaven. I think that's an earthly word. I think that's something that, people just came up with a nice name, but it's another dimension, a whole nother world, I think, that we go to.
Mm-hmm.
So what about some stories that people have given you? What do you find the majority of people, I don't know, have you ever done it and broke it up, or people who are, do you ask them how religious they are before they tell their story, and then compare it to people who maybe aren't religious and see if they have the same experiences or anything like that?
That's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. I mean, I know, growing up Jewish, we weren't really into the whole angel thing. I was kind of always taught that the whole, angels, even though Jews have angels, it's just not, it doesn't have the same weight. There was a trend, maybe it was in the 80s, where, everybody was super into angels and everything. There were angels on everything and all this stuff. And I was always very cynical about it. But recently, a couple of friends have come up with these amazing stories, told me about angels. And I'm like, oh, maybe this is real, right? Maybe, but also it's also how you frame it, right? So if maybe that angel or that thing that you perceive as an angel is actually a spirit or a goat. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the framework that you've been given in your life to define it.
Right, and I've always thought, well, I haven't always thought this, but this is one of my theories, is, how we're crying here when somebody dies, and, I think on the other side are there people over there smiling and celebrating because a new baby was born or something, so. Right, exactly. You got the yin and the yang, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a story of a friend of mine. He's actually an author as well. His name is Tim Baker, and he had a really good story that kind of blew my mind. When he was in college, he came back for Christmas vacation, and he was living in Rhode Island. And he was at a party with his friends, and everybody was drinking, and one of the friends was, exceptionally drunk. And he said, I'm gonna go talk to the girl I just broke up with and maybe get back together with her. So he left the party, got in the car, totally stinking drunk, drove all the way to her house, and my friend Tim and all his friends kept having a party. They totally forgot about him. Well, they get a phone call at the house from this guy's ex-girlfriend, and she says, you got to come pick him up. He is wasted. He just fell down the stairs. You got to come get him. So Tim and his buddy get in their car, and they head to this girl's house. Well, it turns out this drunk guy had fallen over, and he'd gotten himself up and gotten back in his car. And he was headed back to the party. So Tim and his friend are headed one way, and this guy is headed the other way. And the guy is headed down the street on the wrong side of the road. And Tim and his friend are on the right side of the road. And they end up converging and hitting each other, and in a complete total wreck. And Tim said when he saw the pictures of it, he said it looked like nobody should have gotten out alive. So this friend of his, who was drunk driving, ended up dying. And Tim and his friend ended up okay. They were actually, like, barely hurt. But that car, they were, like, so crunched into that car that the jaws of life had to come and pry him out. Well, he said that, he didn't remember anything that happened. I don't know when his memory started coming back, but he didn't remember any of the events. This was all retold to him. And because someone had died in the accident, there was, a lot of police reports and a lot of depositions, and apparently he went back and read all the first responder reports. So this is like, the fire department, the police, everybody who was on the scene first. And all of them reported seeing a woman at Tim's side of the car. And she was bent over and talking to him, and I guess they could hear her. And she was calling him and saying, "Timmy, it's okay. Everything's going to be all right." And so, of course, because this woman was basically the witness, the only witness to this event, they wanted to find her. But no matter what they did, nobody could figure out who she was. Tim lived in this small town, or like a small neighborhood that was close-knit, everybody knew each other. Tim actually went door to door in his neighborhood asking if anybody knew who the heck this woman was. And nobody knew who she was. And he's convinced that it was actually a guardian angel watching over him. And when he told me that story, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, stories like that are just amazing. I've heard stories, people have told me stories about, certain roads where a child would walk out and stop the car, because you don't want to run her over, and it turns out that, they give her a ride or what have you, and they get into town and they're told, "Oh, you gave who a ride?" You know who that was. And you find out that they're dead.
Really?
And there are a lot of true stories like that. I know that.
I know. That's what's just so crazy. It's like these are real stories. It's just it's mind blowing. I know. I have another story. Another friend of mine actually, and it's just because I'm starting out is that I'm starting with my friends, but there's so many friends with these stories that I'm like, oh my gosh. But
tell away.
This one is total. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I say tell away. I'm all ears.
Yeah. All right. So this is a story from Kevin, who is a retired Brooklyn cop. So, and this one is just like, I love it because it doesn't fit with any other paranormal event like that. I don't even know what this would be called. I don't know, I don't know what it is. So him and his family were driving up to the Poconos. They lived in Pennsylvania. They're driving up to the Poconos to drop his father-in-law off there and then leave him there for the week and then come back and get him. So they leave him there, and then they head back, and his daughter has to go to the bathroom. So they pull into this small town that they'd always been at, kind of like the truck stop right at the exit, but they decided to go into town. And they went into town, and it was like this really quaint little town. He said it was almost like trapped in the 20s. Like it was the hotel where there was like lights on. There was nighttime, and there was music playing and dancing. And the gas station, it was the old pumps with the globes, with the glass at the top. And he said there was this little general store, and it looked like kind of like an old Western general store. He said it was just kind of real old. And he said they pulled up in their minivan, and everybody just kind of like stared at them. People just looked at them really weird. Nobody said anything to them, just stared at them, and they pulled up to a fire station to let his daughter go to the bathroom, and his son goes with her, and they go into the fire station. And while they're waiting, again, these people are kind of walking around the car looking at them like, who the heck are you, And the daughter and the son come out from the fire station, and they're like, you know what, that was really, really weird. And he's, why? What was weird? He said, nobody said a word. Even when we asked where the bathroom was, they just pointed and they just stared at us.
Wow.
So they're like, okay, whatever, weird. They thought, sometimes these backwater small towns, it happens. So they drove off and they went home. Well, a week later, they're headed back. And on their way back, they get the father-in-law, and they're like, let's stop at that town. Let's stop there. That was really weird, right? So they pull in. They know the name of the town. It's the exact same town. They pull in, and the hotel, this is 1 week later, the hotel is boarded up, and it looks like he says it's been boarded up forever. The gas station is there, but there's no pumps. And everything is, more modern looking. And so they left, and they said they call it now, they refer to it to the Twilight Zone town. They said, oh, remember that time we went in the Twilight Zone? Because it's like nobody knows what happened. And I actually made him, I went to Kevin's house and met his wife, and I asked her, okay, tell me the story. And she said this exact same story, describing the exact same way, and it was like, what the heck happened?
Maybe they went through some kind of, you say that you don't know what paranormal category to put it in. Maybe they went through some kind of time warp.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that's all I can think. I mean, how cool is that? Isn't that cool to think that, well, maybe we can, do time warp, too. We can jump out of our bodies, we can meet dead people, and we can time warp, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I have had 3 in my life out of bodies. 2 as a child, I had 1 as an adult. And as an adult, I had a lot more freedom, which maybe that's the way it is. Maybe when you're a child, you can't go too far because maybe there's a demon waiting to take the body. I don't know. But,
right.
When I was an adult, the way I explain it is in your body, you're driving and you see out your windshield and you can only see what the windows allow you to see. But when you get out of your body, it's like getting out of the car and standing on the tallest hill and just seeing everything. I mean, that's what it's like. It's like you could see and go anywhere you want.
Wow. And how do you know it wasn't just a lucid dream?
Well, I asked myself that several times, and as a child, I don't know if those could have been lucid dreams, but as an adult, the only reason I know is because my mother had met me in this out-of-body experience. As a matter of fact, I think she caused it, and she told me a few things, such as about my business. I mean, I was depressed. I was down. I was ready to die, and she came to me and told me things that happened in the next week, 2 weeks. That's the only confirmation. That's what did it, because of those things. And the business picked up. I got a new truck. I got a different living situation. I hadn't seen my kids for 4 months. She told me that I'd see them the next day. I thought, that's crazy, right? But the next morning, here they go. The mother pulls into the driveway with the kids and invites me to Christmas dinner. That should have never happened, and it did. So,
right.
And she told me about these things, and that is the only that confirmed it for me. And on top of that, probably 3 weeks later, I go to 2 or 3 weeks later, it might even been a month, but I go to my sister's house for a birthday party for my nephew, and I sit down at the living room couch, and on her end table she's got a scrapbook of pictures, which is different. I'm not at my sister. She lives in New York. I'm in South Carolina now, but so I had nothing to do, so I start flipping through the pages. Don't you know, the first page, I go halfway through the book, I open it halfway, and there's my mother in the same exact clothes she was wearing when she came to me. She was back about, 30-some years old, and that's the picture I went to, and that's what she looked like then, and I never seen it before. So I had a lot of confirmation.
Yeah.
So I'm a believer now.
Yeah. Wow.
I wish everybody can have that kind of an experience. I mean, they'd feel a lot better about things.
Yeah, exactly. Or the people who have those near-death experiences, which that almost sounds like one. I mean, it sounds like it has that kind of quality of a near-death experience.
Yeah, well, she died in 2001, and this was 2004, and it was just one of those times where everything was falling apart. We all, I guess, have those moments in our life, and I was having mine, and as a matter of fact, my doctor tried to put me on those wonderful drugs you see on TV, and I didn't take them, but, when you're depressed, there's something making you depressed, you need to fix that. And no pill is going to do it. So, but I mean, it's just the way everything worked. It's, I mean, I when I snapped back into my body, I mean, I was in tears and I couldn't stop for probably a good 20 minutes. Right. And it was an amazing experience. And I can't prove to anybody else, but I know, and that's enough for me. So.
Right. Well, I interviewed a woman, who said that she had an out-of-body experience. She was taking a nap, and she got up out of her body, and she didn't really realize she was out of her body, but she was standing in a room, and there's all these people, and I think they were like kind of in old-fashioned clothes, and just all these people, and they're just looking at her. And then she realized, she looked back and she saw her body, and she said she got, that kind of sucked back in.
That's what I felt.
To her body.
Yes, that's what I felt. When I went back in I heard that same thing. It sounded like a funnel of water going down the drain. It was like, whoosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the sound she made. She had another one. I can't remember what that one was all about, but it was that same kind of, that kind of sucking sound that you just got sucked back. I mean, to me, the reason I love doing all this is because it's so exciting that there's so much more out there, that life isn't just this kind of, very rational, scientific, and I love science, and I grew up with a very scientific background. But to me, it's like, okay, I get that, I get the mundane, but it's like, wow, you mean you can jump out of your body? I mean, I don't know if I want to, but I just like the idea that it's possible, and that people can do that, or that you could go back and talk to your mom. I mean, how cool is that?
It is, and some people could do it. They claim to be able to do it at will. I can't. I've tried to do it at will, and I get to a point where I'm actually going stir crazy inside, where I just have to get up and just, I don't know how it's done. I can't do it, but it happened on its own, and I think that last time, I think my mother came because, I guess I needed it. I guess it wasn't, hey, it ain't your time, buddy, get out of that mode. So, that kind of thing, and she took me to the house I grew up in, which none of us lived in no more. She took me there, and the ceilings were raised, and we stood up above, and she showed me my father and my sister talking. It's like she never spoke words. She showed me what she wanted to tell me, and it's like I just comprehended it all. She said there is a God. She said, she told me about the things that would fall in place for me, and don't do anything stupid. Tell your sister I'm okay, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And
right.
And so,
wow. And how did it feel? Did it feel like a dream, or did it feel like? I interviewed I just posted today a woman who has clairvoyant dreams, and I was asking her about the difference between a lucid dream, between a dream and these kind of clairvoyant experiences, and she said that it was very different, that it was much more visceral and real. Did it have a different quality than a dream?
It did. I mean, it was like a dream. I mean, it could be similar. I guess people could mistake it for. That's why I'm glad I had the confirmations I did. But it was real. I mean, you could feel the wind when you're moving. You can, all those senses are there with you. It's you could smell, you can hear. I mean, I was able to do all those things, but there wasn't really much to hear except for wind. I remember hearing a lot of wind, and I know just before my mom left, she, the only word she spoke was, she said, "Oh shit," real fast, and she always did that when she was in trouble. So she probably was staying longer than she was supposed to. I don't know, but
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Oh my gosh!
I got a knock about 3:20 in the morning on the window, and I got up off my cot that I was laying on, and came over to the window and opened the curtain, and there she was standing there, and It was from the ankles up. There was no feet, just floating there.
Yeah.
And I looked back because I thought this has to be a dream, and I looked back and my body was just laying there in the bed, and she reached her hand out, and I put my hand in hers, and then bam, it was like we were like light, and we went to the next place, and then we just hovered there for a while, and she told me all kinds of stuff, and when it seemed like it went on for a long time. But here's the thing: when I snapped back into my body, it was still 3:20 in the morning. It's like time had stopped. It was strange. Right. So the time never moved. But I mean, we did a lot. It was a long night. So weird stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to promote myself really quick in case, for your listeners out there.
Please do.
If you like these stories that I'm telling and Michael's stories, these kind of things, my website, www.thatsobizarre.com. It's THATSOBIZARRE. Bizarre is a hard word to spell. BIZARRE. I share a lot of my stories like this on YouTube.
Great. Well, what I want to do now is take a quick break, and it'll be about a 4 or 5 minute break. And when we come back, I'd like to talk, hear a little bit about open souls. I'd love to indulge on maybe some stories you got about the dark side and what you think about the dark side. And I often wonder if I ask people this a lot when we get into these kind of conversations. You could think about it on the break, but whether cyberspace, now being a good thing, I love it. I would never want it to go away. But when we have new technologies like this, do you think we might open new portals for evil to come through? I mean, it could be used for good, but do you think evil could use these things? Like people could be, I don't know, digitally possessed or something. So maybe because it's like a whole nother world, So we'll talk about a little bit about that and open souls when we come back. Folks, this is Late Night in the Midlands. My guest is Becky. Is it Pourchot?
Pourchot.
Okay, see, folks, my record stands. Another one I got wrong. Okay, Pourchot. So hang in there with us, Becky, and I'm going to put you on hold so you won't hear nothing for a few minutes, and we'll be back, folks. This, again, is Late Night in the Midlands. You're welcome to call in, by the way, if you'd like to. 803-317-2264. We'll be right back.
You have found the best place on the internet by tuning into K98Talk.com, where it is our mission to broadcast the very best variety programming, giving you a balance of information from every angle and letting you decide. We are here to serve our listening audience with a proven track record. So stay with K98Talk.com and the Spark Radio Network, and we will keep you informed.
Hello, this is Lisa Marie, here to tell you about Oxy Silver, legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and Oxy Silver, Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use 528 Superfood as a great tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight, and Zeolove and natural clays for detoxifying your body. Oxy Silver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help Help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948 and buy Oxy Silver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy Oxy Silver, GI Flora Pro, 528 Superfood, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. Cure Shop. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
It's the middle of the night and there's nothing much to do. Bring your insomniac self over to Late Night in the Midlands and learn something. We've got every topic you can think of with very little being off limits. Alien abductions, government corruptions, the stuff that's got your sleep disrupted. Come join the conversation tales and tune into Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com.
For 15 years, I've been obsessed to find out what was going on inside of him. It's been my life work and my ultimate failure. This force, this thing that lived inside of him came from a source too violent, too deadly for you to imagine. It grew inside him, contaminating his soul. It was pure evil.
The Android app, and then there's of course iTunes for you Apple users, and our station is on there as well, and of course the website is very easily accessible to everybody now, so there's plenty of ways for us to be with you everywhere. My guest tonight is very fun to talk to. Becky and I are discussing the paranormal, and you're welcome to join us if you wish. And of course the link is up on LateNightInTheMidlands.com and the LNM Radio Network, so you could go check us out there as well, or even on Ira's website, Open Eyes. I have trouble remembering my own sites, folks. I'm sorry, but they're listed there. Ways to listen. I think that was the old site, so that's not. Maybe it is listed. I don't know. Ask Ira. He's in the chat room. He'll tell you. But get on over there to LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Join the chat room. Join us. Help us. Keep us on the air. We love doing this, and I know you love having us because you've kept us here. So let's get back to it with my guest tonight. And Becky, so what do you think about, the dark side? What do you think that all that is? I've had guests who have come pretty close to proving to me, I believe them very much, that they have had dark type entities that tormented them. Bill Bean being one. I don't know if you ever heard the story or if you've watched it on the Discovery Channel, but he lived in a home. He grew up in a home for about 10 years, and it had demonic activity. And just imagine sleeping, in the bed and waking up one day or one morning or even one night, and there's this Undertaker type creature standing at the foot of your bed. With black eyes. I mean, he would describe this stuff to me, and I couldn't imagine. So I don't know. What do you think the dark side's all about?
For me, I haven't heard a lot of dark side stories.
Oh, lucky you.
And and again, I'm just, I've been collecting these stories, for a lifetime. I've, asked people stories, and I don't have a lot of those dark side stories, and I'm not saying they're not real, But, man, I don't know. I mean, I've gone through periods in my life, kind of like what you were saying about kind of, you know, these periods of down and out, where I was pretty sure, like I understood what hell was. Like, okay, it's not this fire thing, right? You know, where if there was a point in my life where there were demons, that was it. You know what I mean? Now, people, you know, you might call that mental illness. You might call that a mental breakdown. But I mean, the stuff it's there. But to me, it's a question of how much you feed it. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I always say that when your time does come and you do go to the other side, I think you create that hell. If you do wind up in a fiery pit, that's because that's what you expected, and so you won't be in it long. You'll wake up eventually, hopefully. But you know, I think we create that.
Right, and I mean I think that's true of life too. You know, I think if it's true of life, it's probably true of death and all of reality. Is we kind of choose, you know, what we're gonna. People talk about the Ouija board and the Ouija board being, you know, satanic or, you know, being kind of, you know, being dark magic, and I think if you want to let that stuff in, even, you know, sometimes you say, oh, I don't want to let that stuff in, but sometimes you do.
Yeah.
You know, even though you think you don't.
I've told people if I really want to bring in a demon, I could use or any kind of energy like that. I could use anything. If I believe it's going to work, then I could use the remote control to do that.
Exactly.
So
exactly, and that's it. Is that you know, it's and you know, it's just like it's the same thing as if you know, in a less paranormal way, is like you wake up in the morning and you say, I want to have a really bad day. Well, you know what? You're going to make a really bad day. It's your choice, you know? And it's the same thing, you know, if, you know, like, I want to welcome in the dark side, or, you know what I mean? It's going to come. That's what you're going to see. And I think, fortunately, in my life, I'm around people who kind of are more open to the you know, the white light, I guess you could say, or whatever. I have, you know, people who are open to goodness. And so maybe that's why I don't get those stories very often.
Yeah. Well, you know, I come to peace when I'm in a bad mood. You know, there's a few things I could do, but one of my favorite things to do is just to go out and get in there with nature, just especially at night. I like if the mosquitoes would stay off me. I like to go out and check out the stars, and you know, that always calms me down. I mean, how could you look at a beautiful starry sky, you know, and not start thinking about other things except for what's irritated you, right? So that's what works for me.
I think that like that's your tool, right? You going out at night and looking at a starry sky is your tool to find goodness, right? To find peace. And I think, and this is all, you know, I really have no experience in this, but my guess is when you come across demonic stuff, it's the same thing, is that you have a choice whether you want to let this thing in or not. And, you know, and it's up to you. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree, because, you know, I've often, when I've had people tell me about demonic activity, and, you know, I've always said, well, are you still there? Because I'd love to come and check it out. I mean, that's just, and, oh, you don't want to do that. But no, I moved. And it's like, darn, because... But, you know, I wouldn't welcome it. I have a feeling, for me, I don't know, this is the way I think. If I went into a home with demonic entities and I went and just to prove it to myself, they say sometimes they'll leech to you, I could guarantee none of them are leaving with me, because I just wouldn't allow it. I wouldn't even, you know, fathom it. It'd be like, you're done. I'm done with you. You know, I closed the door and you can't come through. And I don't know, I think that, you know, the power of suggestion is big. And if you, that's like, you know, remember the vampire movies, and, you know, the woman would hold up the cross and the vampire would laugh at her and say, you've got to believe it for it to work, you know?
Right. Oh, right, exactly. Well, it's just like, you know, let's say you have a ghost in your house, and so you're like, well, who do we call? And Ghostbusters. But, you know, it's like you call like a shaman, like a Native American shaman, or I could call like a priest, or I could, you know, there's a list of different types of belief systems that you could call, and each of them is going to have a different technique. But you know what? Maybe all of them will work. You know what I mean? Because the intent is the same.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't see why not. It's just, for me, I don't know. I think that in anything you've got good and bad, and I think that you've got good humans, you've got all right humans, you've got bad humans, and then you've got just downright nasty, disgusting humans who shouldn't even be breathing. And I think that when those people go to the other side, I mean, who's to say that they don't take that persona with them? Right.
And it's up to you. Like when you're playing with this stuff, like a friend of mine, I started doing Ouija recently, and she said, you have to make sure, because I've been doing readings for people, and she said when you do it, you protect yourself. And I'm like, it's all right. It's and I realize she has a point that you're opening yourself anytime. It's like opening a door. You start doing the cards, and even though in this mundane world, it's just a set of cards, and you're just shuffling them, and they just have pictures on them, and it's just the same as a deck of cards, but a deck of playing cards. But you, by the way you do it, you're opening up something, and you have to be really careful. Because you just don't know.
Yeah, and
I think it's important.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that people used to tell me, "Oh, don't mess with the Ouija board." I remember I was going to do it on the air once in the studio that we had, and everybody was writing in, "Don't do it, don't do it," and I'd laughed because I'm thinking, "Come on, it says Parker Brothers on this thing." I mean.
Right, exactly.
They're making it. I mean, so, they made the board. You would have to make it demonic. Now, I think some of them old boards, maybe something's attached to some of those original old, maybe, I don't know what, 18th century or something. But, when it says Parker Brothers on it, I just can't take that so serious.
Right. But you know what, though? I think if you do take it seriously, then it has the power. You know what I mean? I think you can apply the power to it.
I agree.
I had some friends who in high school they would make their own Ouija board. Like they didn't have a Ouija board, so they'd take like a piece of paper from their notebook and then make a little planchette with the paper. Tear a little hole in it and write the letters on it. And they got some crazy stuff that was, they had long conversations. They had this relationship with this ghost for a long period of time. And that was, literally pages of a notebook. So, I mean, I think anything has the power if you give it to it.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, that's just like a bully. I mean, they feel more empowered when you give them that power.
Exactly. Exactly.
Come to the playground with brass knuckles and things change. So,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So Open Souls. Tell us all about Open Souls. A little more about that.
Well, so Open Souls is it's fictional. It's a story about a man and a woman who kind of randomly meet in St. Augustine, Florida. And for those of you who don't know about St. Augustine, it's the nation's oldest city. I'm thinking 1600s. And it feels like the nation's oldest city. It really does. And so I decided to have this setting where this man and this woman find this ancient box. They don't know where it came from, why it's sitting there, and they open it up, and it's kind of like a personalized Pandora's box. So basically your dark sides come out. So basically the two of them, who really don't know each other, their lives start to descend into madness, and their dark sides, like she's this uptight, kind of librarian-type personality. She's a cupcake baker, and she's very kind of restrained and controlled. And well, when this shadow, basically what happens is this shadow person comes out, and the shadow brings out what she sees as her negative side. Basically, she becomes much more like flirtatious and much more kind of promiscuous. And she gets very wild. And for her, it's kind of a good thing because it opens her up, but it goes too far. And Brad is a tattoo artist, and he's kind of gruff, and he's kind of emotionless and kind of that typical kind of male personality, and he and for him, he ends up being very emotional, and he starts crying all the time, and he's having these memories he's suppressed and all this stuff. But basically, it's the story of these two people who are haunted by this shadow whose sole purpose is to make their lives disintegrate. And you know, in the end, they have to learn about themselves and realize that, and this is kind of my personal philosophy, is that your dark side is not necessarily your enemy. That actually, if you embrace your dark side, it helps to make you a whole person.
The yin and the yang.
Exactly, and you can't have one without the other. And so the paranormal element is the shadow that follows them around, and it's almost more like a trickster. I'd be curious to ask my readers what they think, because on one hand it's very menacing, because it's making their lives miserable. As it has this kind of this evil laugh that they hear all the time. But on the other hand, it's a trickster, because traditional tricksters are actually trying to teach you something. So this shadow is teaching them in kind of what feels like a negative way.
Right. Okay. So, and you say, I was reading over some of the material here, and you say that you know, at some point there's a road to self-discovery where you've got to face your real identity. You know, who are you?
Right.
Are you going to be that? Is the bad going to help you be good, or is the good going to help you be bad? Right.
Right. Very good. Yes, exactly. And that's ultimately what the story is about. Is you know, realizing that this is, like, you know, for this guy, I mean, his without giving away too much, I mean, he's got all this repressed memories of his childhood that he's kind of pushed down so he can be this controlled, stern man, and, you know, be the fun guy. And really, this stuff is kind of deep in there, and it needs to come out, even though he's resisted. The entire book, he resists this, and then in the end, he's like, oh! Like, oh, okay, maybe this is part of me, you know?
I see. Now, it was, I guess it's set up in St. Augustine, Florida. Why there? Is that your neck of the woods?
Yes, it is. I live in Flagler Beach, Florida, which is about 40 minutes away, and I love St. Augustine. And really, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but it's one of the ghost capitals of the country. You can't go more than 2 blocks in the downtown area without seeing an ad for a ghost tour. I mean, and at night, like if we were down there right now, there's, you know, people dressed up in, you know, old-fashioned garb walking the streets telling stories about ghosts. I mean, and you feel it, and it's what I love is when I go up there and I start talking to people. I actually did a presentation recently, and the host, the gal at the cafe was like, "Yeah, 5 minutes ago there was a shadow person in the back room." I'm like, "What? What are you telling me?" Like, you know, there's ghosts are just everywhere there. I mean, you know, people have ghost stories up the butt. So it's an amazing town.
And we kind of share that common theme, because I am in Columbia, South Carolina, and just a couple hours away is Charleston, South Carolina. And the ghost stories there, the ghost tours, and you know, I think it would be fun. I've never yet gone on one of these ghost tours. I think it would be fun, but for me, you know, I wouldn't want them to do anything extra to make it spooky. It's like, you know, I'd want to take it serious. I would love to go into one of these former, I don't know what you'd call them, asylums, or it's one of these old prisons, or, you know, go into one of those places. I'd love to spend a night in one of those places. You know.
Yeah. I you know, if you were down here, I'd hook you up. We've got a lot of really cool. One of the guys I interviewed, he runs a tour called Sam Hain Paranormal, and they do some crazy stuff. You would like it. It's like basically they have a totally different technique. Basically, their goal is, when they go out into the field, they try to elicit emotion, an emotion of the people on the tour. So his thinking is that ghosts are drawn to human energy, and so if people are angry or people are having a good time and they're laughing, that draws the kind of ghost energy in. And what they do is, so they'll play games and they'll get everybody laughing, and people do dramatics and have the tour group laugh or whatever, get intense, and then they'll start snapping pictures, and then they get these crazy pictures of these weird, like, weird shapes and weird faces and weird bodies and stuff like that, that they pull out in the midst of all that emotion.
Oh, wow. And that when you said pictures, it kind of clicked the light bulb in my head, and just about, I don't even know if it was 2 years ago now, but a niece and nephew who were very young kept saying that they had, invisible friends that would visit them.
Right.
And, I thought it was just that kid kind of cute thing. But, of course, I don't, I always take an interest in these things. I listen to everybody, even the kids. So, but the mom is in the car with these kids one day and decides she's going to, oh, that's right. The kids had this Game Boy thing, and it has where you could take pictures with it. And so they take a picture of themselves, like a selfie, and in the picture there is a third face that shouldn't be there, and in there it's an old guy. I mean, he was old and wrinkled face, and his face was like, it was almost like faded a bit, and it wasn't a reflection because nobody looked like that. So, I mean, it was just crazy. And they showed me that, and I said, oh. Yeah. We had a psychic who was going to do a cleansing for him. She's since passed away. But the mother never would agree to it. She didn't want nothing to do with it. It's like, okay. And to this day, one of the children doesn't even like to go in the room and get dressed by herself because she said that the ghosts are in there. And, wow. So one of these nights when, I don't want to mention her name in case she's listening, but one of these nights she's not going to be home, and I'm going to set up the Ouija board in the house there. And see if I can get...
Oh, man. This guy who does the Sam Hain Paranormal Tours, his name is Eddie Mayer. That's what they do exactly. They'll take pictures and faces will appear where there shouldn't be faces. It's very intimidating and very crazy.
It is. So, so do you actually go on investigations and stuff? I know people. I used to say ghost hunting too, but I think that's. You're not really hunting them because if you find them, there's nothing you could do. You can't suck them up in a vacuum. So you're basically, you better hope that they like you.
I did, back in the day when I was freelancing, I did these little ghost hunting, I bring in 1 year I brought in a psychic, or 2 years I brought in a psychic, and we look for stuff. I actually, in Middleton, Wisconsin, it's the National Mustard Museum. Was an old building. I think it was an old, I can't remember. I think it was an old pub or something. And there had been reports of some kind of paranormal activity. So I went in there with a psychic, and I mean, you've got to be a little lighthearted if you're running a mustard museum. There are many mustards, by the way. And he did feature a ghost pepper mustard, which I thought was fitting. But we went through there, we didn't find much, and it's amazing, how, and I don't say this in a negative way, but there's a lot of times that I've done these things and you really just don't find anything. And sometimes I think when you're really looking, it's kind of like when you were trying to have the out-of-body experience. When you really, really want it, it doesn't happen. I don't understand why that is, but sometimes I think when people are when you're looking for a ghost, it's almost like they're like, oh, they're coming, okay. It's like maybe you just have to wait for your time.
Yeah, I think that it comes down to, it's times like that when you realize you just really have no power over these things and that the universe will give you what you need when you need it. I think that's just how it works. And, I always looked at it like there's spirits and then there's ghosts. Spirits have gone to the light or whatever it is they do. I've never been there, so I don't exactly know. but they go to that other side. They I don't know if they check in or what they do, and they're able to come back if they need to. Now, Ghost, I think that's a different ball game. I think they're the ones who are afraid to go because maybe they bring their human beliefs with them, and they're thinking, oh my Lord, I'm going to end up in hell. I'm not going to the light because I don't want to be judged. They might think that way, and that might prevent them from going, or they might be attached to something in a house or a house itself or whatever it might be. So I kind of separate them there a little bit, but I'm no expert, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually, I've been really fascinated by kind of international perspectives of ghosts, and I have yet to find a good book on this subject, but because I'm curious what other cultures, how they see ghosts, and if they match ours, because if everybody has the same idea of what a ghost is, then hey, we're on to something, across the world. In China, and actually I have a series of books called the Hungry Ghost series, and it's based off of the Chinese idea that there's these hungry ghosts. Basically, these are souls of people who have died in a lot of times who've committed suicide or died angry, basically. And they're basically banished. Their version of hell is walking the earth as a hungry ghost. And a hungry ghost, if you see in the pictures of them, they have very small mouths and very small, long necks and huge bellies. So basically, I mean, if you can imagine what that would be like, to be hungry all the time and have this huge belly and never be able to satiate, to be satisfied. And so that's, one of my favorite, I always mention, I think, Hungry Ghost is a very powerful concept, and I think that there are probably, plenty of hungry ghosts who were not ready to die or died violently, that have things unresolved.
And that's why I would love to set up some kind of study where, and not with no universities or anything like that, just an independent study, and find out, from around the world. We should do it on the show some night, and find out from around the world people who have had, say, near-death experiences. I mean, if you took a child and from birth you told that child that, and I'm just a theory here, just kind of, throwing things out here. But if you told that child that, okay, Mickey Mouse created everything. Mickey Mouse, when you die, you're going to go to Disneyland, you're going to see Mickey, and you're going to see Goofy, and you're going to see all these.
Right.
What I'd like to do is I would like to see if they did have a near-death experience, what did they see? When they went to that light, what was there? Was it Mickey Mouse, or was it what everybody else on the other side of the fence is saying? Yeah.
Right. But I've read, I read a couple books on near-death experiences, and the experience is pretty cohesive across the board. Like, it's very similar, and I can't remember all the stages of it, but and the light is part of it, and being greeted by people you love, but another consistent component of near-death experiences is that when the people come back, that they're changed, and it's kind of like a born-again kind of experience where they see everything new, and they're no longer afraid of death. And they live the rest of their lives not fearful. Like, if they were grumpy and fearful before this experience, afterwards they're no longer like that. Like, it basically cleans them, and they're kind of start out fresh and new.
See, my last out-of-body experience did that for me. Since that, it confirmed for me that there is something on the other side, and that this isn't it. So what's there to fear? And, back last year, I got to test that theory, as a matter of fact. Last year I had a severe heart attack. And, but, and I did fine. I wasn't scared. I wasn't worried about dying. I was joking around, as a matter of fact, as they were working on me. And here I am. I'm doing fine. I'm in good spirits. I don't get up every day thinking, oh no, I hope I don't die. I don't want to, but if it happens, I think I'll become more powerful than I am now. So I'll be able to do a lot more.
Right.
They can have the body.
And I don't know. I think all this stuff is just so exciting and so much fun.
Well, yeah, it really is. It is a lot of fun, and that's I tell listeners this all the time. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn. This is an experience. This is a lesson. I see us as spiritual beings, having a human experience where, how would we know what jealousy was and what all these things were if we didn't get into this meat suit and do what we're doing in this lifetime. So I think that it's a lesson. Now, some people say that we come back, and there's been cases that are hard to discount where a child has said, this is who I was in the last life. These were my friends. This is what happened. And they've been able to confirm these things. And so you got to wonder, so I think that maybe we do come back, but what I don't know is, do we get to choose? And some people say, well, yeah, we choose to come back. I'd like to remember that, though. I wish I knew, I'd like to get some confirmation that I chose to be here at this time.
Right, exactly.
So, and they say that we choose our parents and all that, and if that's the case, well, then I should be doing draft picks for a professional football team because I picked a couple good ones. So, I'm thankful for that. But, I guess everything that happens in our lives makes us who we are, but I guess when we get on the other side, we probably remember again. And then when we have to come back, we don't. I don't know. I guess we'll find out, right?
We'll find out, right?
Problem is, we can never come back and tell anybody.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Have you encountered fakes? As far as psychics go, and we know, in what was in the Victorian era, all the spiritualism that went on, and how they were, all the stories of the kids who were frauds and were tricking everybody and making them think that they were talking to ghosts and all that stuff. So obviously that's out there. Have you experienced that?
I absolutely have. I've experienced that twice in the 8 years I've been doing this. One was the first, and people could go find it. I'm not going to give the name. I don't want to do that. But you'll find, if you look into my first month of shows, you'll see a psychic that's on there. And, she was so worried about the publicity. Make sure you play this song. I do that. I sell it here. Do this and do that. All demands for a full week until she come on the show. Demands. And I'm like, this woman better be good. So she gets on, and we had probably 30 calls that night that came in. And she was just downright off on every single one of them, and she bugged me after that to come back on my show. I said, no way am I was nice. I didn't, I wanted to tell her off, but because these people know that they're fake, and how dare you play with people like that? If you don't really have the gift, then stop it. Go away. Don't do that, because you're giving people, and they think they're helping when they do that. They think, well, I'm helping, they make them feel good. Yeah, but you're giving them false information, and you shouldn't do that. And so, but yeah, I've run across a couple.
It's interesting when I do tarot readings, and I won't take money for it just because one, I'm not good enough, but two, I feel like I don't want to be misleading them, and I don't understand tarot enough to really qualify for that. But when I do tarot readings, I notice that people are really try to interpret. It's like they work really hard to make it work, and sometimes I worry. I'm like, I ask myself, okay, is this magic? Is this something divination, or is this just people really wanting this to happen? They just want this to be the truth, And that's something I struggle with a lot. And honestly, I don't do tarot readings very much anymore because of that. For instance, I have this Native American tarot set, and it's your totem animals. And so my friend drew these 3 cards, and I did a reading. I was using a book, and I told her the reading what it was, and she said, "Oh my gosh, Becky, that's me exactly." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And then I looked down and I realized it was flipped. like I read the card flipped, so I gave her the wrong reading. I gave her the reading for the inverted card, and it wasn't inverted. So basically, the reading was completely not the true reading. So, and I don't know. I didn't know what to think of that. You know, are we just trying to make this stuff real with our hopes, or you know, or was I meant to give her the other reading? You know what I mean? I do know what you mean. And you know, there's been times in my life when I've known to, you know, it's like, I think we all have a little bit of this, what's called intuition, but I think it goes a step further than that, and just some of us don't pay attention to it. And there's times when I knew better. I knew something bad was about to happen, but I did it anyways because I didn't trust, you know, I'm thinking, okay, I'm being kooky. And exactly what I seen or thought was going to happen did happen. Now, is that a psychic experience? I don't know. But if you ever do want to talk to a couple real psychics, I know a couple that I can direct you to. One of them's in our chat room now. Another one is Mark, believe it or not, it's Mark the Psychic Lawyer. And, you know, I thought it was funny too, but I've had this guy on, and he is incredible. I mean, he's phenomenal, and so is Maggie, who's in our chat room. And we did have Helene Olsen. She's since passed away. She was pretty good too, but yeah, so there's a couple people, you'd have a really good 10 minutes with them, I'll tell you that. Right. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I have this woman I was telling you about, who's I put her up today actually on that'ssobizarre.com. She has, and I can't remember if I had mentioned this, but she's been kind of riddled with these dreams back, 20 years ago, where she would wake up in the middle of the night and have had this lucid dream of, and this is just absolutely horrible, of a little girl. Her dream started with a little girl. She said it was a little Asian girl who was in this basement, and she said she could see through the eyes of her killer in this dream, and he was coming at her, and she could see all these brutal things that this man did to her. And so she woke up, she said, total panic attack, I mean, of course. And she said it wasn't like her other dreams. She said it was very lucid and very clear. And she said she kind of brushed it off, okay, weird dream. She said the next week she had more of these with different people, different victims, same guy, kept happening, kept seeing it. So finally she confessed it to her therapist at the time, and he was writing it in a journal. And finally, like the third time or fourth time that she came to him, he said, do you know about this? I think he was called the Night Stalker. It was somebody out in California. And she said, no, I don't really watch the news at all. And he said, because you're describing these murders exactly. And at the time, they hadn't caught him. And so they just, she kept watching it. She started following this guy, and it was really, it was exactly, to a T, these murders were what she was seeing. But she said it was the most horrible feeling because she was helpless, because they weren't really premonitions. They were clairvoyant, so she was seeing them at the time. She could see it happening, but she couldn't do anything. So get this. This is the craziest part of the story. She was working as a nurse, and she came into this man's room. It was at a nursing home, and he was gone. He, for all intents and purposes, was gone. So she started doing compressions on him, and the other nurses came in, and they got everybody there, and everybody was working on him. And they got him back to breathing again, and they brought him all to the hospital. She said a few days later he came back, and he just wasn't himself, and he wasn't talking at all. And she went, and she had to go in and brush his teeth, and she went in there, and he kind of whispers to her, and he says, Richie Ramirez is who you're looking for. And she's like, what are you talking about? She was polite, I'm sure, but she was like, I don't know any Richie Ramirez. I don't know who you're talking about. And she just kind of walked off, and it kind of creeped her out, but nothing, right? Yeah. Well, a few weeks later, it comes out that they find this guy, this killer, that looks like the killer in her dreams, and his name is Ricardo Ramirez. And it turns out his family calls him Richie Ramirez. So what the heck was that? I don't know. I mean, that goes beyond, the clairvoyant. What is this guy, this strange man that she works with, having this vision as well, right? He dies and comes back and has this knowledge.
Yeah, that's kind of like two people, I guess it's a little bit like that, two people having the same dream. And,
right.
And you tell somebody, you wouldn't believe the dream I had, and they're like, oh my God, no way, I had that dream too. And then you wonder, was it meant for you both to talk about it too? I mean, so you knew each other had that dream, and there was some significance. I mean, the universe is really strange.
I know, and in my take on the world is that you just gotta, like, when those weird things happen, you just gotta go, okay, thank you, like, okay, because I used to get really wound up in analyzing what was going on. I'm like, well, what does this mean? It's gotta have a deeper meaning, and I would get so wound up in that and obsess about it, and now as I'm older, I'm like, I'll never really know what this means. I just won't. So I'm just going to take it as a gift, and if I have a better understanding, that's fine, but I can't get wrapped up in it.
Yeah, well, and I was just having a talk with somebody today about, that very thing, the other side, and Autumn and I were talking about it, and she was saying, well, how do you know this? How do you know? Why don't we know this stuff? If there's how come we don't, how come God doesn't tell us or whatever? Why aren't we told? And I said, well, because we're not supposed to know. And she says, well, why not? And I said, well, I mean, think about it. I said, if your 5-year-old child comes to you and says, Mommy, how are babies born? Or how are babies made? I mean, are you going to really get into detail with it? No, right? So I look at us the same way. And she goes, well, no, but eventually she'll know. And I said, well, yeah, and so will you. Eventually you'll know too. When you graduate from this class, when you get out of, I guess we're in kindergarten or something right now, when we get out of here, we're able to know more. We go to the other side and we take them lessons. I think we probably sit down with our counselor and we discuss what we learned. And then maybe he decides whether, we need another lesson or not. I don't know. But it's, it's interesting. So, listen, Becky, we're going to take one more break here, and then we'll come back, and you and I will finish up. And before we're done, I'll give you the floor to get out anything that you'd like. And so we'll talk some more when we get back. Folks, if any of you want to speak with myself or Becky, you've got a few more minutes to do that. And the call-in number is 803-317-2264, and we'll be back in just a few moments. Becky is my guest. That is Becky Pourchot, and you may, again, get to her websites. I think there's 2 of them, and they're linked up on LateNightInTheMidlands.com or the LNM Radio Network. And, folks, we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
LNM Radio has joined with the Hardened Structures team to provide state-of-the-art survival shelter design and build services at LNM Radio exclusive rates. Hardened Structures, with over 21 years experience in military, commercial, and private shelter design build services, are also offering LNM Radio listeners a free consultation, normally a $500 value. So click on the Hardened Structures banner on the home page or the chat and listen page and have peace of mind that no matter what happens, your family is protected.
The LNM Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information, and subscribe today. Information on becoming an LNM subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you. You want the truth? Late Night in the Midlands knows you deserve it. That's why we make it easy for you to listen at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Go on over, become a member, be informed, and by all means inform others. Folks, we're not your average radio show. We cover everything. Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. LNM is always looking for sponsors, so if you are interested in sponsorship or advertisement on air or on our website, contact us at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com. If you're interested in rebroadcasting or picking up the live feed for Late Night in the Midlands, then contact us at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com and help us help you. The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the listen live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com.
In many cases is the idea that the aliens are essentially trying to create a hybrid mix of themselves and ourselves. They're interested in our DNA, our genetic makeup. And beyond that, they're interested in our personalities, our affection for our children, our love for one another, a whole kind of range of what we think of almost the most human characteristics we have emotionally.
We have to face up to reality that, for example, the UFO phenomenon is a real phenomenon, no question about it. So anybody who debunks the UFO phenomenon itself don't know what he or she's talking about.
Hey, Michael, I promised you I'd call in for a little bit, and here I am.
I know that I bashed Bush the entire time. I wouldn't even allow him coast to coast there for a while because I was told not to talk about Bush.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Late Night in the Midlands. We cover everything. But, what if he was one of us? What if it's us? We left a long time ago, and now we're coming back, You never know. I mean, look at the way people are playing God today. They're creating genetically modified babies and genetically modified everything, cloning this, cloning that, bringing back things that have been gone for thousands of years. Even millions. They probably got a little T-Rex running around somewhere we don't know about. But, you just never know. And I look at things like that, and it makes me wonder. But that's not what we're talking about right now. Right now we're talking with Becky Pourchot, and she's linked up over on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. So you're welcome. If you want to call in, this is your last shot with our guest tonight. So, again, 803-317-2264. And Becky, we've come to that time of the show where I'll ask you. Well, first off, you were hesitant to become an author. Is that correct? You were afraid to actually do it at one point, and may I ask why? Because I think you do a great job.
Thank you. Well, I think that I didn't think. I don't know. I'm thinking about this for a second.
I won't say afraid. I'd
yes,
say
go ahead.
Reluctant. You were reluctant.
I was reluctant. Yes, I didn't. My mom was a painter, and she didn't sell a lot of stuff. And I didn't think that being a writer. I thought of being a writer would be like being a painter, and it would just kind of there'd be no glory. And there's not a lot of glory. It's a lot more work than it is glory, but it's. But yeah, I mean, I jumped into it just kind of by accident. You know, I took a couple writing classes, and it's kind of like a second nature to me. I mean, for me, it's as much as walking or swimming or riding a bike. To me, what I say is it kind of exercises my demons. You know, it's like you got all that stuff inside. It helps clean you out. You know, it's like all that stuff all those issues. You know, like in Open Souls. You know, basically, I personally in my life was feeling like I had recently opened Pandora's box, and my life was kind of felt like it was going out of control. And then the question came to me, well, is this a bad thing? And my answer, as I had said in the book, is no, not really. It's actually a good thing. So, yeah, for me, I'm so grateful that I overcame that reluctance, and I was able to say, you know, no, this isn't about, you know, performance and how good I am. This is about, you know, stating truth, you know, sharing truth, and hopefully other people read my books and can say, oh, yeah, I can connect with that truth. You know, these are real human experiences. And if you're interested in my books, you can go to www.opensoulsbook.com. That's www.opensoulsbook.com, and you can read more there about Olivia and Brad and their strange, twisted romance.
All right, great. And you've got a ghost series as well that you do, correct?
That's right. Right. And those are about a teenage girl named Gala who moves to Flagler Beach, the town I live in, and finds out there's a ghost in her house. Actually, she's doing the Ouija board with her brother one night, and they call upon this ghost that's been trapped in their rental home. And this ghost turns out to be her same age and is desperate for a friend because she's been trapped there so long, and they become friends. And it's all sweet and happy for a little while until Gala realizes that having a ghost as a best friend is not really all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how much I would like that. I mean, I've had my dealings with the paranormal, and you know, I'll save it for when I get there, I guess. I mean, I don't know though. I guess it would depend. I think that it would be shocking at first, and it would be a little, because you never know where they are, you know.
Right. Well, this ghost is a hungry ghost, so she is never fulfilled. So she feeds off of Gala's energy, and it's this kind of endless feeding. And that's actually based less off the paranormal and off of, again, real life stuff where I've known people and have friends in my life who are constantly hungry and kind of draining me, and I've never known how to deal with them. And so this is kind of a book for young adults in particular, who have issues with their friends. And, you know, just think about what if one of these hungry people, these needy people, is a ghost and they have ultimate power, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and maybe it's fun for a while being a ghost, and maybe that's why they don't leave. Maybe that's why they stay. I guess if I had my choice, see now, when I pass away, if somebody's got the little clipboard and they say, you want to come or you want to stay, and if they'll let me go haunt like the White House or something for a little while, then I'll do that.
Yeah. In the second book in the Hungry Ghost series, she goes to this bed and breakfast, and it's haunted by this ghost, and she can see the ghost, and it's this former ghost hunter, like kind of like one of those guys on Taps or whatever, and he's been sent to this little bed and breakfast as punishment for all the times that he has harassed ghosts as a ghost hunter. So basically, you know, so it's neat. The story ends up being ghost hunters from the ghost perspective, and how irritating all these kind of ghost tourists can be.
Well, yeah, I guess I could see that. I think about that sometimes. I'll sit back and I'll think, if when I die, when that time comes, and I look around and I say, is there anything that I feel like right now that I might be attached to and not want to leave? And
right.
And see, I guess while you're alive, there's many things you'd love to take with you. I'd love to take my Madden football game with me, but I know I can't, so, and amongst other things, I just hope it's fun when I get there. I hope that it's not, we're all putting on gowns and burning candles together. I hope that's not what it's like.
Oh, I know. I worry. I'm like, I'll be really disappointed if it's just the classic heaven with the little halos over your head. I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah, I'll be raising my hand saying, I'll go back, volunteer. Send me back.
Exactly. No. But like we were saying, like I think people choose what their fate is. I think it's what you believe, and if you believe you die and there's Mickey Mouse and Goofy waiting for you, hey, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'd rather have Mickey and Goofy waiting for me than some of the things I understand could be waiting for you.
Right, exactly.
So, Becky, is there anything else that you'd like to get out? And I'm not going to rush you. You take your time. Any appearances you've got coming up, anything like that you'd like to get out, websites again, whatever it might be, by all means, go ahead. And I appreciate you being a guest tonight. I've had a lot of fun talking with you. And if you'd like, later on, a couple hours from now, I could send you a link if you want the link to this in case you want to put it anywhere or share it with anybody.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
I am always looking for good stories. I am very open to all kinds of experiences, and would love to hear from your listeners. If people want to email me, you can email me at Becky, Becky, at, and then my last name, Pourchot, Pourchot.com. And you can send me your stories, and if we work well together, I can get you on the show. The show is called That's So Bizarre. It's a YouTube web series. It's www.that'ssobizarre.com, and bizarre is Bizarre. And and my books, you can find my books at opensoulsbook.com. That's the book I was telling you about. I also have the Hungry Ghost series, which is hungryghostbooks.com. So I've got all kinds of stuff. I've got a lot going on. Definitely, I love hearing people's stories and sharing, and so absolutely, I love to talk.
Well, great, and keep in touch. Anytime you got something you want to talk about, shoot me an email, and we'll find an open spot and bring you on. And again, if you wind up doing a half-hour or hour radio show and you want to get it out somewhere, we've got a lot of affiliates here, and we could get it out. We'll put it on the network for you, because I really enjoyed talking to you, and I know the listeners enjoyed hearing you.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Well, Becky, thank you so much, and I will keep you linked up on our links page at latenightinthemidlands.com. And till next time, keep your eyes posted to those dark spaces, I guess, and keep documenting these stories. I love it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, there you have it. I love having these conversations, and they could go one of two ways. You can have a lot of fun with it, or you could get somebody who's just downright scientifically boring, and they say, no, that's not possible. We have not developed that in the lab yet. So thankfully she was fun and bubbly. All right, and our next guest, who's going to be with us for, about an hour here, and then we'll finish up tonight. A little bubbly as well, and I'll tell you more about her in just a moment. You're listening to Late Night in the Midlands on the L&M Radio Network and the Dark Matter Radio Network. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and I am Michael Vera, and I am about ready to introduce my guest, Deborah Moffat, and I need to get her on the line here with us. So bear with me, and I didn't even get her a chance to tell her I was going to bring her right on like this, so See what happens.
Hello.
Hi, Deborah. This is Michael
Yes.
Farrell with Late Night in the Midlands. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. I should tell you we are live. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I am looking forward to learning all I can from your story tonight.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us. I definitely appreciate it. I guess let's start out from the beginning. If there's anything you'd like to start with, by all means, go ahead. But I guess you actually were tormented. Your family was tormented by what you call demons. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Well, I can't tell you I identified them, but the experts and people that came to try to help us that came to the house, that's what they identified it as.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, let's start from the beginning then, if you don't mind.
No, we'll start right from the beginning. This started, it's in California, in the Rancho Cucamonga area. This started before I even came to California. I'm from New York originally. This was my husband's family. If I explain how the houses were arranged to make it easier to tell the story, they were arranged on the corner of a large property. There was 3 houses. The first house my husband owned, but he didn't live in it. The second house was my mother-in-law and father-in-law's house. The third house belonged to my mother-in-law's mother. Now, how this is speculated because we don't know for sure, but this is what the people that have investigated this have said, that they believe this all started by a housekeeper that was taking care of the old lady, practicing some type of magical ritual. They think it was Santeria. And in her attempts, and I don't think it was, from what I hear, was in any way evil, I think she was trying to keep the mother-in-law's mother alive because if she died, she was going to have to go back to Guatemala, and she didn't want to return home. So she supposedly maybe opened up a portal or some type of door and let something come through. That's supposedly how it started. First thing that happened was the house was rented out after my mother-in-law's mother died, and the gentleman was complaining a little bit about he thought someone had died in the house. He asked, had someone died in this house? And then he told my husband he was communicating with something on a Ouija board. Well, about this time in 1987, my husband and I got married, and the 4 of us lived together, his mother, his father, my husband, and myself, in the middle house. My husband had a heart condition, and it was just more comfortable at the time to be all together. We rented out the house on the other side that my husband owned. Things started happening in that house also. We rented out to a young man. And are you familiar with the term apports?
Apports? No, not offhand, I'm not.
Okay, well, they're like a manifestation of objects without any physical means.
Oh.
Things would come from where he was staying in the house next to us, and would appear on next to my mother-in-law's bed, his personal items, socks, underwear, jewelry, without anybody taking them there. They were just, all of a sudden they would just show up.
But these were items that already existed. They just were ending up in areas where they weren't supposed to be.
Right, they were moved without anybody that you could see moving them. The next thing that happened down in this house, where this gentleman was living, he had a bedroom that he lived in, and he had free will of the house. We rented him out like that. But my husband kept one of the rooms there for his sports memorabilia. And the very first thing that we saw happen was we opened the door, and on the floor, someone had taken the bobbleheads, baseball bobbleheads, off the wall and had put them down on the floor in the sign of a triangle. Now, of course, the first thing we thought was the tenant had gotten into the room and was touching things. But he said no, and the room had been locked. But you still try to rationalize and think, somebody was doing it. But he said he wasn't. But within like a week or so, he moved out. Wouldn't tell us anything. He just said he wasn't comfortable there anymore. He moved out. So the next thing that happened when I was in that house was there was this large shelf that went across the living room that you'd have to get on a ladder to get up to change the all different statues and things. And when he moved out, I was looking around to see what had to be cleaned. And I looked up and looked at all the statues and noticed how dirty they were. They were dusty. Turned around. When I turned back, all the statues on the shelf were completely turned around backwards.
Whoa,
and this happened
smokes.
not in front of me, but with the time I turned my back and turned backwards. So it started from there.
Yeah, so you actually, I mean, you experienced this stuff, so this isn't just secondhand. This is something.
No, this was right while I was there.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, go ahead.
It got more amazing, but not threatening. At this time, there wasn't any type of a feeling of evil or darkness or anything. It was more like amazing. You'd go into the house. No one was living there at the time, and things would appear from one room out into the other room. You'd go into like the kitchen, and you'd come back into the living room, and there'd be lamps from the bedroom sitting in the middle of the living room. Or you could go in and say, okay, let's see you move something, and he'd move a furniture from one room to the other room. And this would be done in a matter of seconds. You'd go in the kitchen, come back out, and it'd be done. It was amazing. I mean, it was like you knew something was happening. You couldn't figure it out. But at the time, it was not threatening.
Uh-huh. Okay. So
my mother-in-law and my husband especially were very leery of this. They were very frightened of things that were anything that was paranormal. Then things started to happen in the house we were all living in. But little things, like I said at the beginning, pictures turned, and especially like to turn things backwards. Where, you know, you'd look at a picture and then you'd look again, everything, and it would be turned backwards. Things moved, ports. Like I said, from the other house would come to this house. During this time, we were contemplating moving to a larger house anyway and selling these 3 properties. So even though this was going on and it was very scary to my mother-in-law and husband, the reason we really moved at the time was just to a bigger house. But my mother-in-law was very happy to move because she thought when we moved, we'd get away from everything. When it actually did start getting, you could see that it was getting hostile, was the last day we were there. My mother-in-law and myself were just finishing packing, and while we were in one room, we heard a loud noise, and the entity destroyed the kitchen. It ripped the cabinets. It just ripped them right out of the wall. All wood splintered all over the kitchen. We ran to the kitchen, and we couldn't believe what happened. And then, the last room we had been in, it blew out the windows in the room.
Well, let me ask you this. At this point, what are you all thinking? Are you thinking, I mean, do you have a clue of what's actually going on yet?
You know, at the beginning, when things were just moving, little things moving, we all thought, oh, maybe it's just a poltergeist or a ghost. Yeah. Someone had died in my husband's house that we were renting. His uncle had died there. So we just speculated, oh, it must be a ghost, a little ghost or something, until the last day, and things got very, very hostile. Then we knew at that time it was something that wasn't nice. It also, I don't like to talk about this, it killed one of our dogs that night. So we knew at that time it wasn't something nice, it was something very bad. So we were very happy that we were moving. We were getting away from there. We thought when we went to the new house, everything would be fine. Unfortunately, after about 3 weeks, things started happening at the new house.
Oh, so they followed you.
Right. It came with us.
And I just wanted to say that, I've talked to a few different people who have had this type of phenomena go on around them. And it seems like often the dog becomes a target. So,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, this entity killed 3 of our dogs.
My goodness.
And it was so sad. I don't even like to think about it because it was horrible.
Wow. Okay.
But when we got up at the new house, first thing that happened was my mother-in-law's sister's picture was turned backwards. Then little things would happen. At this time, we started thinking about, well, who can we contact to try to get rid of what's bothering us? Then the entity started to do something which was, to me, absolutely amazing. He started to write to us on the mirror. Upstairs, my mother-in-law's and father-in-law's had a bedroom upstairs with a sitting room and a bathroom, and it started writing on the mirror upstairs in soap. The first thing it wrote was, "Talk to me."
See,
it wanted us to. communicate with it.
And this is kind of freaky to me because I think about it, and here's an entity that obviously has intelligence. I mean, it's able to write. But anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It was so amazing. But when you first see things like that, the first thing you think is, well, one of us is doing it. One of us is writing on the mirror, because you can't believe something that you can't see can write on a mirror. Right. It's just make believe. But we'd clean the mirror. All four of us would leave the room. We'd wait a few minutes. We'd go back into the room, and there would be more writing on the mirror. So none of us was physically writing on this mirror. Something else was doing it. It stated that it wanted us to call him Prince, and it wanted to talk.
What did it want to talk about?
At this time, it just was actually starting to get threatening. For some reason, it hated my mother-in-law. We didn't know why at the time, but it focused all its negativity at my mother-in-law. It would start saying, Lee will die. I hate Lee.
Was your mother-in-law like one of the strong people of the family who, No. No?
My mother-in-law, she was very religious, and actually her faith in God is what actually kept her sane through this whole event. But no, she was absolutely petrified, and so was my husband.
Well,
my father-in-law was rather indifferent to everything that was going on. He wasn't frightened. He was just like he didn't want to be bothered with it. But the entity focused all the negativity on her. From there, it progressed. The entity started doing very malicious things to her. It started cutting up her clothes. She'd go in the closet to get something to wear, and the arms would be cut off it. One time, all her clothes were covered in bleach. It would take her shoes. She wasn't even able to carry a wallet or a purse because it would take the money out. It took all her credit cards and destroyed them. So it was making her life a living hell.
See, and you would think that an entity that wants to cause problems, if it did this stuff kind of secretly, I mean, at some point, I guess the question here would be is, were you all expecting or suspecting each other?
Yes, we did. We did it. Like I said, we checked each other about the writing with all this terrible things going on. We went to with all these things going on, we went to a psychologist as a family to see if something was going on. We took pictures. We explained to him everything that was going on. He interviewed us like for a month. We each went individually and we went as a family unit. After about a month, he told us, he said, I can't really help you. He said, I would recommend that you find a parapsychologist to see if he can help you with the problem. So he started to believe, and he didn't believe at first. But after everything we showed him and everything, he started to think maybe it was something that wasn't human.
Now, you had mentioned that the mother-in-law was a religious person. So did you ever, at any point, did anyone try to go to the church to get help? Yes,
we did. When this was first going on at the new house, my mother-in-law contacted a priest who came to the house, an older gentleman. He came in. She asked him. She didn't explain what was going on. She was going to explain once he got up here. She asked him to come and bless the house. So he came in, never left the hall of the house, came into the foyer and stayed there. He made the sign of the cross, said a prayer, and said, okay, I have to go now. And she said, no, don't you have to go to every room and bless each room? And he said, no, this is all I have to do. So then she tried to explain to him what was going on, and he didn't want to hear anything. He said, no, I have to go. And he just literally almost ran out of the house, jumped in his car, and left.
Now, this isn't the first time I've heard that either. And that tells me is how much faith do these guys really have who tell us to have faith?
I don't know. I think maybe you have to contact somebody who's really trained in it, who really knows what's going on. Because I think a normal priest is just as frightened as we are.
Well, yeah.
He certainly was.
I would be too, no doubt about it. No matter what my belief is, you can't deny what's going on right in front of your eyes.
No, you can't. And it was very hard because my mother-in-law was ashamed of what was going on. She didn't want people to know what was going on. She didn't want us to tell anyone because she thought they would either think we were nuts, or she thought that they would think that maybe she had done something bad and was being punished, and that's why this demon or entity was after her. So she was very hard for us to convince her to actually bring people in to try to help us get rid of it. The entity at this time wanted to isolate us. He would do things to make it so uncomfortable that we would stay away from people. if we went to to a friend's house, we went to visit my mother-in-law's friend. While we were there, nothing happened. But when we came home, on the kitchen table was the gentleman's wallet. So, I mean, how could we go back to this gentleman and tell him, we have your wallet, we were just at your house? He would do things to show us that even though he didn't do some things when we were there, he was always with us. And he made it so you wouldn't want to have friends around because you couldn't explain to them what was writing on the mirror or who was causing problems or taking things from them. So he basically isolated us from people.
Oh, see, now I think that if it was me, I would say I would have my friends come in because I'd say, yeah, now you see I'm not crazy.
Yeah. But, you know, that one thing it would just make my mother-in-law so frightened that it would almost threaten her. That if she had other people come in, you know, friends and things, it would do things to her friends. She had a gentleman come in with his wife, very good friend of hers. He walked with a cane. The entity took his cane. The gentleman thought his wife took it when he was in the house, and they had a terrible argument, and they left, and a terrible argument. And the entity finally brought back the cane, put it on the door as he was leaving. So when he went to the door to leave, there was this cane hanging on the door.
Oh, wow.
So it just made us so we were just isolated, which was a very bad thing, because the best thing would have been to tell everyone. Some weren't going to believe you, some were, but you needed to be able to tell people, and we weren't.
Right. And when was this now? What year are we talking?
This all started back in 1984 when the grandmother died. This started when I was there, that I can tell you what happened to me was started in 87 and it lasted till 91.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I want to hear all about it. I was just wondering because, you know, nowadays people are pretty well open to these kind of things, but I guess you go back, you know, early 80s, late 70s and beyond, and, you know, people didn't like to mention these things too much, I guess.
No, they didn't. They thought you were strange or evil yourself. And also, it was very hard to find people to help. It's not like it is today. You just go on the internet or you watch these TV shows and contact people to help you. There weren't any people to really help you at the time. So it was very hard to find people to come out.
Yeah, really the only option you probably had was the church, and then you've got priests who are running out of the house, so that's not helping.
No, it wasn't. It didn't help a bit. At this time, the entity even escalated its hostility toward my mother-in-law. It started putting knives where she'd go to, where her regular chair was that she'd always sit in. It'd stick knives through the bottom, so if she sat in the chair, she'd be stabbed. It put knives in her pillow, so if she went to bed at night, she'd be stabbed. We had to go around with her before she could sit and examine where she would sit before she could sit down. That's how bad it got.
See, that would concern me even more so, because if something really bad happened and say she laid down and got stabbed in the neck and it, you know, God forbid, killed her, now you'd have the police, you know, coming in saying which one of you murdered her. You know?
And that's why we had to finally convince her that we had to start getting people in to know what was going on. The entity also was getting very, he absolutely destroyed the house. He would gouge. He had a symbol. His symbol was a triangle with a tail at the bottom of the triangle, almost like a kite. And he would gouge that into the walls. He would burn it into the walls. He took our carpets and he cut the symbol out of the carpet, not just little pieces, like 3 and 4 feet pieces of carpet. He did all kinds of magical symbols all over the house. Then finally, my mother and father-in-law couldn't stay upstairs anymore because she just was too frightened. So we actually all moved together downstairs into the master bedroom where my husband and my new child were. And we all stayed in there for 5 years.
Wow. So now, did you start doing some kind of research on the history of the house and trying to...
Now, this is it. It didn't start at this house. It started at the houses down on Archibald Avenue in Rancho Cucamonga. That's where it started. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law had owned that property for like 40 years, and nothing had happened until this housekeeper came. So that's why they attribute it to something that she did. So I really don't think it was associated with the property. I think it was just somebody that opened up a door and something came through.
I see. Now, I've had a gentleman on, you might know of him, Bill Bean, and I asked him the same question. Well, the people who are living in the house now, if they had any problems, and he kind of went down the same road and said, well, the entities, they were attached to him, not so much attached to the house, and so that would make sense why another family would move in and say, well, there's nothing going on here.
No, we contemplated moving, but when it kept showing us that it went whenever we went, if we tried to go even away for a few days just to get away, it would do things where we were. My mother-in-law, we went on a couple days to Santa Barbara to try to get away from it, and my mother-in-law packed her bag. When the time we got to the hotel, she opened up her bag, and everything in her bag was destroyed, all her clothes. So she had to go out and buy new clothes just to be in Santa Barbara for a few days.
So
it was constant harassment.
So even if you left, say, to go on a week's vacation, this entity or entities would follow you guys?
Came with us.
I wouldn't have got on no airplanes.
We were at a motel in Santa Barbara, and this was actually, for some reason, it made me laugh at this because it was so bizarre. We came in, and there was inside the courtyard, there's a beautiful fern plant. It's about 5 feet tall, probably 200 pounds, 250 pounds. It was beautiful. And my mother-in-law said, that's a beautiful plant. Well, I said, well, tonight I'll get you a little piece of the root, and when you go home, you can plant it at the house just to make her happy. Well, we went in, we were getting dressed for dinner, came out, and the entity had pulled the plant out of the ground and picked it up and put it in my mother-in-law's doorway, this gigantic plant, so that when she opened her door, she couldn't get it in and out of her apartment, out of the hotel room.
Wow.
We had to drag it back and replant it. My mother-in-law was so frantic, thinking people were going to think that we were trying to take the plant.
See, I guess
the entity thought that was amusing.
I would be a little afraid to be trying, because I guess when I'm in my car, I would be thinking I'm afraid to look in the rearview mirror because that sucker's going to show up in the back seat,
It did show itself a few times to my mother-in-law. One time it had her locked into a pantry area, and it actually tried to strangle her. When we found her, she even had the bruises on her neck.
Wow.
So it really did try to hurt her. Like I said, then it started writing in it took over the upstairs. They came down, lived with us in the master bedroom, and the upstairs actually became like the entities where it lived, because you could even go up the steps, and as you were going partway up the steps, you could feel this heaviness that you knew something was wrong. So it just took over the upstairs.
Wow. So
when we stopped going upstairs, it stopped writing on the upstairs mirror and moved and started writing on the guest bathroom mirror downstairs. And that's where it did most of its communication from then on. I found that if I was the only one that would talk to it, because everybody was afraid of it. But it talked constantly, and it spoke different languages. It spoke English, Spanish, Italian, and it even spoke an old dead language called Tobresh, which was my mother-in-law's language. She was a Sicilian, but with Albanian roots, and they spoke a dialect of Sicilian called Tobresh. And the entity would write in Tobresh to her on the mirror. She would think she could talk to my husband in this language, and the entity wouldn't know what she was saying, and then the entity would answer her on the mirror. So it spoke all different languages.
Yeah, that's a clear sign of a demonic entity, because I've not seen it personally, but heard of cases where people just start speaking languages that they've never spoke before. So, these demons, they have that ability. Apparently, they can haunt you no matter what you speak.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. They understand everything, I guess. So the entity started writing on the mirror downstairs. And if I talked to it on the mirror and communicated with it, the destruction in the house lessened. It would take more of its energy to communicate on the mirror than to destroy the house. So one time before we realized this, we took the soap away, thinking if we take the soap away, it'll stop talking to us. And then it just started escalating on the walls. We had every day we'd wake up, and this happened not once in a while. This was every single day. We'd get up in the morning, we'd have to patch the walls. We'd have to clean the carpets where it wrote things. It was constant.
Yeah. See, now, I guess taking the soap away really wouldn't, because, can't they, now I'm just going by what I've heard and read about, but can't they, I mean, they could make, like, liquid appear on the walls and mirrors.
Yeah, he did. He did. So we just put the soap back. It was much easier cleaning a mirror to communicate than it was to him to rip up our walls. So he started communicating back on the wall, on the mirror.
How did you all keep your sanity through all this? Because
you know what? It was very, very hard. I tried to keep, believe it or not, I tried to keep a good sense of humor, because if sometimes things got so crazy, sometimes you just sit down and think, I can't believe this is happening. He turned our swimming pool black. It actually turned the water in the swimming pool black. We had people come, they couldn't fix it. It was like swamp water. So one gentleman said, I'm going to have to empty the pool. We said, fine. So he brought this big, expensive hose, ran it from the pool in the backyard to the front to pump it out. Well, he was pumping it out all night. Well, during the night, the entity cut the hose in 3 spots. So this expensive, when the gentleman came back the next day, here's his hose cut in 3 large pieces. How are we going to explain to this gentleman who cut his hose?
Oh, exactly.
These are the type of things that would do to put us in strange predicaments. So it was just unbelievable.
It is. Now, kind of jumping ahead a little here, is what did you actually do to deal with this, and are you dealing with it still today?
No, it left. But back then, we had people from all over the United States come to try to help us get rid of it. We had a voodoo lady first we started with a priest. And we even tried another priest who promised us he would try to get us help, but it never materialized. From there, we went to local people that practiced, that were like investigators. And they got frightened when they were here and left, didn't want anything to do with us. We went to the university, UCLA, with Thelma Moss. Spoke to Thelma Moss, who contacted Carrie Gaynor, an investigator who came here to try to help. He couldn't help. Ed and Lorraine Warren, it's demonologists.
Mm-hmm.
They came out. They spent 3 or 4 days here with us. They tried to help us get rid of it. My father-in-law during this time was a very strange man. He wasn't a very nice man to begin with. When they were here, they did a rite of provocation. They filmed all this. They had a gentleman with them who documented everything on film. They did the rite of provocation. My mother-in-law and the baby stayed in the kitchen away from us. We did this in the living room. There was my husband, myself, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and the gentleman who was filming it.
Now,
at the time,
I was going to say, I know of Ed and Lorraine because I had a guest on several months ago who said that they actually got involved in their case as well. And didn't they like to take an artifact of some sort out of the house that they thought these
Actually, no, they didn't. They brought a religious artifact in. He said he had a piece of the cross, and he did the rite of provocation. And I think whatever happened, this entity went into my father-in-law, and my father-in-law got up off the couch and he changed. I mean, his whole stature changed. He became humped over, like a hump on his back. He pulled his arm up to his chest, and he started walking towards Ed, stumped over, and dragging his leg. And Ed got upset and pulled out the cross and held it in front of him and said, "You can't harm me. I have this." And I remember my father-in-law in a very strange voice said, "I'm going to bite your hand off and chew up that piece of cross and spit it in your face."
Oh, boy. So what happened?
And Ed put the cross up to my father-in-law by his face, and he kind of backed off and went back and sat back on the couch. And a few minutes later, he was back my father-in-law again.
I see. So when this first started happening, so you say it could be linked back to some kind of black magic of some sort, that, dark rituals that somebody might have been doing in the house. Now, this was a caretaker who was doing that, but doing it
right.
But doing it in the house with a family member, right?
Right. My mother-in-law, next to my mother-in-law's home, was another house that her mother lived in. Her mother was like 93 years old, had a stroke, and was very sick. She had a full-time caretaker from Guatemala. Now, why do we think this happened? When the lady left, in the house that she had lived in with the old lady, my mother-in-law found burnt candles. She found blood. She found feathers. She found broken rosary beads. And also, the night that my mother-in-law's mother died, this lady had stayed the night in the house and came running down the house about 3 o'clock and asked for help. She said something evil was in the house. She told my mother-in-law, "Don't go back in this house ever again. Something very bad's there. I'm sorry." And within the next 3 hours, someone came and picked her up, and she left, and they never saw her again.
Oh, my. So I guess what I was getting at is that sometimes it's my understanding that family members could be sometimes involved with this dark magic, if you will, and it could be generations later that it could carry over. And
that's part of the story. There's so many. The story is so complicated. The entity would talk to me, would communicate with me on the mirror. But when it was getting really bad, and we had so many people from all over the United States come to try to help us, and nobody could get rid of it. And one of the reasons why they said we couldn't get rid of it, they said someone in the house must be giving it permission to stay, because this one lady, especially, her name was Dr. Evelyn Paglini. She just passed away out here in California, a wonderful woman. And she came and she said she should have been able to get rid of it, she said. And it was amazing because the entity, she went to her home and she called back my father-in-law and she told him different things to write on the mirror in response to the entity writing. And it was like they had a game of chess. You could watch, she would have him write something, and a few minutes later, the entity would write another. These were all in like magical symbols, different kinds of symbols. It was, but she couldn't get rid of it. She said someone in the house has to be keeping it there. So she said, what I'm going to do tomorrow you'll call me in the morning and something's going to happen tonight. Let me know what it is and we're going to find out which one of you is keeping it. Well, that night we all slept in the same room. About 3:30 in the morning, my father-in-law starts coughing and hacking and shaking like he's freezing. And I remember we all got up to see if he was all right. And he couldn't. This went on for like a half hour. We thought we were going to have to take him to emergency room. And then all of a sudden, it just stopped, like someone turned off a switch. And he put his head down and went to sleep. Well, the next day I told Dr. Paglini what had happened. And she said, I can tell you right now, he is the person that's keeping it in this house. He's not letting it go. He wants it to be here.
Wow. Why would he want it to be there? Or maybe subconsciously he's just so curious?
I really don't think it was subconsciously. My mother-in-law was well off. And my father-in-law got to the point where he just didn't want to be with my mother-in-law anymore. But he wanted the money, I think. From what I could see and what the entity told me, the entity wanted my father-in-law to kill my mother-in-law. And my father-in-law wanted the entity to kill my mother-in-law. It's very. Oh, yeah. The entity told me a long story all about it.
Evil attracts evil.
Right, and within like a week later, this is truly amazing. My father-in-law woke up in the middle of the night and he let out a little scream, so we came running. The entity had apported in bed with him a spearhead, and this spearhead is about 1 foot long. Made of hand-forged metal, and the entity wrote on the mirror he wanted my father-in-law to perform a blood ritual using my mother-in-law. Ooh. And he said, but he had to use this spear. So I took possession of the spear and got it away from my father-in-law. But we took it like within a few days to the Museum of Natural History in California in Los Angeles to see what it was, because it's a strange-looking spear. And they told us it was from the Belgian Congo area. It was over 200 years old. And because of the markings and because of how it was sharpened, it wasn't sharpened on the sides, but it was pointed, so it could be used for rituals, but not for warfare and not for hunting. So they surmised that it was probably from some type of a witch doctor or medicine man. It was a ritual piece of equipment. So I still have that.
Incredible. We've got to take a break here, briefly, and then we'll come back, and I'd like to pick up on this story and talk some more about it. This stuff fascinates me. I am not that I'm happy that you had to go through any of this, because I'm not, but I'm pleased that you'll come out and talk about it, because you know, a lot of people are skeptical about this kind of thing, and you know, I've had ghostly experiences, but certainly nothing on the level that you have. And we'll talk some more when we come back, folks. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera. My guest is Deborah Moffat, and we do have her linked up on the homepage of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. So you can get over, check out her book. Fascinating story, and we're going to get into it some more just as soon as we come back. So hang in there with us. Hello, this is Michael Vera for CureShop.com with products endorsed by Dr. Leonard Horowitz, including Liquid Dentist, a one-stop defense system for not only your mouth, but your whole body. This unprecedented product aggressively attacks the critters that cause oral diseases using concentrated microfine silver plus oxygen and minerals to help reverse tooth decay and gum diseases, helping repair your teeth and gums naturally. Then, by swallowing this amazing and good-tasting tooth and gum saver, you actually get a natural, nutritional immunization against more than 1,000 strains of oral bacteria and viruses when you swallow. Liquid Dentist is awesome for boosting natural immunity. Imagine your teeth feeling hygienic clean and super smooth for up to 3 days after each use. Swish with it 3 minutes or more after brushing and flossing. Gargle to freshen and protect your throat, and then swallow Liquid Dentist. Wow, what a great idea. It's all natural, healing, and protective. Dr. Horowitz developed Liquid Dentist based on emerging science from England, showing a 20-second exposure to medical-grade ozone kills germs deep within decay, even down to the nerve. Then highly concentrated mineral mouth rinsing can remineralize your teeth and harden them even harder than they were originally. This way, teeth can be saved and not drilled away or lost due to decay or tooth fracture. Plus, Liquid Dentist kills periodontal germs and leaves your breath fresh and teeth feeling professionally clean for days. Go to liquiddentist.net to learn more, or go to cureshop.com. That's cureshop.com. CureShoppe.com to order your supply of Liquid Dentist today, or call toll-free 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Call now to save your smile. You're listening to the LNM Radio Network. Late Night in the Midlands is an independent media that covers the truth, theory, and fact that the lamestream media won't talk about. We cover everything from the known, the unknown, the normal, and the paranormal, the government lies and the government ties, and even their thrives. We tell what's coming, what's going, whether it be politics or archaeologists. We have an amazing fan base, and all shows are archived to be heard millions of times more. So tell your friends, your family, and anyone you care about LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Subscribe, become a member, and be informed. Okay, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera. Deborah Moffat is my guest tonight. We're going to talk a little more with her, and I should take this opportunity to welcome our radio affiliates, everybody listening from the Dark Matter Radio Network. Hello to you. And, of course, all of you who might be tuning in from High Points Radio, the top of New Jersey, 1700 AM and 100.5 FM. That's covering New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Hello to you. All of you listening on LateNightInTheMidlands.com, Spreaker.com, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever else you may be listening tonight. Welcome to you all. And, folks, the call-in number, if you have a question or a comment or maybe something similar you've experienced, 803-317-2264 is the number to call in. You can also call in using Skype, and our ID is Late Night in the Midlands. So, Deborah, we're back, and you could pick right back up. So all this crazy stuff is going on. It seems like everyone who tries to help really can't make a dent in this. So what happens next?
We didn't give up hope. We tried still bringing people in to try to get rid of it. My father-in-law, I felt that was going to have to leave for the entity to go. My husband finally agreed with me, but my mother-in-law wouldn't have anything to do with that because she was an old Italian lady. She believed that if you were married to someone, it was for the good or bad, and she wasn't going to have anything to do with getting rid of him, even if he was keeping the entity there. So the entity just progressively got more hostile. When I found that it was like no one could really get rid of it, I remember going into the entity on the mirror, talking to it. And I remember saying, I knew one of us had to be really strong and stand up to the entity, or we were going to all be destroyed. So I remember going into the entity and saying, I'm going to treat you with respect, but you're going to treat me with respect. You're not going to touch my husband. You're not going to touch my child. And you're not going to touch my mother-in-law, Lee. And I left and went back, and the entity wrote, I will not touch your husband. I will not touch your child, but Lee belongs to me.
Wow. And did the entity, usually I would assume that it didn't take you serious. And, they like to believe that they're in power, right? And they kind of are.
But, the entity loved to communicate. And since I think I was the one communicating with it, he never touched my husband. He never touched my child. The only one he would focus his negativity on was my mother-in-law. He didn't the rest of us, like he said, I won't touch them, and he didn't.
Wow.
He told me a story. He wrote, in the book, the author made it so it was like a dream sequence so people could understand it better. But actually the entity wrote this out on the mirror. It wasn't a dream. And the entity told me a story that I asked him why Lee belonged to him, because I couldn't figure out why Lee would belong to him. And I asked him. He told me in a past life, Lee had been promised to him as a sacrifice. And for some reason, the sacrifice didn't come to fruition. And she got away or something. So he said, even though she didn't die in that life, she still belonged to him, and he was going to take her in this life.
Wow. Well, so let me ask this before we even go on in the story. What would you, you've got some experience here now, I would assume. What would you consider these? What are they? Why do they exist? Where do they come from? Any answers?
I don't know. See, this happened 25 years ago. At the time when the entity left, we decided we would never speak of him again. We never spoke. Even my children growing up never knew this story. No one knew it. The only reason, but see, by not telling the story, I always felt like the entity still had a little control over me, by stopping me from telling the truth. So when my mother-in-law died, and then the year before, my husband passed away. And when I was going through things in the closet, I found pictures from the haunting. Now, when the haunting was taking place, when this was all taking place, we would take pictures, take notes, and show them to the people that would come to try to help. Some people would say to us, oh, good, take pictures to the next people that would come would say, oh, no, destroy all the pictures, destroy your notes, because you're keeping it here by feeding it. So we'd destroy everything. Well, my husband didn't destroy everything. It seemed like from every year he kept a few pictures in the negatives, and he put them in a box. And when he died, I found those. And I looked through these pictures, and I just had this need. It was almost like a need to just let people know what happened. So that's why I had this written, to just let people know what happened. And it just made me feel good that I could just now just tell the story.
Now, do you have other people who've gone through this who might be contacting you now and saying, hey, I've got the same problem going on. Can you help us?
I haven't, no.
No, not yet anyways, huh?
No, this just came out last month before. So this is new. It just came out, just getting out there.
Okay.
But I just want people to know that these things do exist.
And what type of pictures did he have?
I took pictures. We took pictures of the entities writing on the mirror. I have hundreds of pictures of him writing to us. Not the actual him writing, but what he wrote, the destruction he did, all the different symbols he carved into the walls. And I like I said, I still have the spearhead that he apported.
Wow. Okay. And these pictures, I would assume, are probably within the book.
There's some pictures, yes, in the book.
Okay. Cool. Great.
And on the website, there's more pictures.
All right. So how did we get rid of these entities? How did you finally nail it in the butt and get them off your back, I guess I could say?
My mother-in-law finally decided after 5 years of living through this hell, and my father-in-law really not changing, not really trying to help himself change so he wouldn't keep this here, decided that he had to go. So she asked him to leave, and he left. The entity stayed. The entity didn't go with him. The entity stayed with us. But the entity, I think it knew now that he was gone that we were going to be able to get rid of it. Because I would tell it, there's nobody here now that hates, that everybody here is not going to feed you. You're going to have to leave. You don't have permission to stay now. And then the entity wrote to me on the mirror, I don't want to go. Well, at this time, we had a gentleman staying with us who was a researcher. And he was a little strange to begin with. He was going to England to work on a TV show. And he said to me, do you think if I ask the entity to come with me, he'll come with me? And I said, I don't know. I'll tell him, go with you. Maybe he'll go. So I told the entity he had to leave and he should go with this gentleman. And the entity said, I will not go. I will not work with an inferior being. He is an empty vessel. But finally, I kept telling him he had to go, or we were going to get somebody that was going to get rid of him. He said, all right. He said, goodbye, my family. And he left with this gentleman, and that was 25 years ago.
Wow. Well, you had, if I could say so, I think you had one of the more decent of these demons, because usually, from some of the stories that I've covered is, when you challenge them or a priest comes in the house and tries to get rid of them or anything like that, I mean, they really get stirred up.
No, he would treat people like inferiors. It was like they were beneath him. These people would come into the house, and afterwards he would laugh at them and tell me things about them and say, that person had no juice. That person couldn't get rid of me. The machine didn't detect me. It was like he was so far above them that he just considered them like nothing. And it's funny, it's like you said, especially when I was a kid, I saw movies about demons, horrible demons doing this and that. But this demon was horrible, let me tell you. It was frightening. He did want my mother-in-law dead. He did terrible, terrible things. But then he also had a part of him that wanted to communicate. And he wanted to talk, and he would tell me things about the past. He'd tell me things about the future, things that were going on in the present. I can tell you one thing he told me. I called a gentleman named Scott Rogo from Los Angeles, who was an expert at this type of thing, to try to come and help us. And I called him on the phone. He wasn't home, but I left a message. Well, a few days later, Mr. Entity wrote on the mirror, Rogo is dead. And I thought, oh my goodness, the entity heard him. And he said, and I said, what happened? He said, he was murdered. And he even told me two gentlemen killed him. Well, I had no idea this was true. Like within 2 days or a day after that, it was announced on the news that Scott Rogo had been murdered.
Wow. So this entity was volunteering information. It's kind of amazing. Usually, they I don't know, they usually don't play so so nice.
It was amazing. It was like, here was this demon that was so powerful, but he was so intelligent. He almost had a sense of humor, but he was an evil demon. But Lorraine Warren said he is a very, very ancient demon. She said he's very ancient and very intelligent. And it showed in the way he wrote the things he would tell me. He would tell me about people that he had affected in past lives. It was the most amazing. I look back at it now because I'm not living it now, 25 years ago. And at the time it was terrifying and it was a horrible thing. But when I look back at it now, it was absolutely amazing. I had communication with this being that would tell me all these things and talk to me. I mean, it was an amazing and horrible time at the same.
Yeah, it is amazing. Now, some of the listeners are asking whether this entity had ever told you about future events. I know you just mentioned the murder, but any other future events that it might have told you about?
It would tell me about my husband was really into politics. It would tell me who was going to win political races before they would win, things like that. It didn't say like the world's going to end and so. I wouldn't even ask those type of questions because I didn't want to know.
Well, plus they're known for lying too. You know.
This is true. You don't know what he told me was the truth. It did happen that everything he did tell me did come to be, but I don't know when he was going to tell a lie.
That's true. And, that's what kind of gets me edgy when people say, well, I'm in contact with ETs or I'm in contact with angels and it's like, well, you really got to be sure who you're connecting with.
Right. You don't know. I never know if what he told me was some things that did happen. Yeah, they were the truth. But things he told me about the past, I don't know if that was true or not. Just like we had something good in the house that would write on a different wall, and it wrote almost in almost saying like having a poem, and at the end of it would say your friend the Holy Trinity. Now I don't know if that was something good in the house or if that was Mr. Entity just fooling with us. He was in control of our lives. I mean, we were like puppets. He was in control.
Yeah. Well, I just had something on the tip of my tongue that I wanted to ask, and now it slipped. I looked at the chat room, and it blanked me. But, okay, this is where I was going. Now, was it actually a demon, or is it possible that it could have just been a rotten person who passed over and refused?
You know what? It had so many things that it could do. The experts that came said, no, it had to be a demon. Because it could do such apports, and it didn't apport little things. One time it brought me a rock. I love rocks, and we were in Sedona trying to find help to get rid of him, and I wanted a rock from the top of Bell Mountain. I remember saying to my husband, "Oh, I wish I could have went up there and got a rock." Well, when I came home, in the back of the truck was this big rock, and he wrote on the mirror, "This is a present for you," and it was from the top of the mountain. He said, so he could apport large things. One time he took the truck that was in our driveway, and we woke up the next day and the truck was in the middle of the road, blocking the road. Wow. I mean, it could do things that a normal entity or a spirit couldn't do. It had too much power.
Yeah, and I'm amazed by the fact that you didn't have to take any serious steps to getting rid of it, and that it was willing to, okay, as long as I can haunt someone else, sure, I'll go.
Right. He didn't want it. He said, I do not want to leave. I said, you have to go. You can't stay here. I said, we'll have to get other people to get rid of you. Now you'll have to go because no one's keeping you here. And this gentleman was going to England and said, he actually asked him to come with him. He said, please come with me. He told me he thought that the entity was so strong it could change his life.
I see. So I'm sure we all would like to know. I'd really like to know where these demonic type entities come from. And I don't believe in the whole hell thing. I don't think that's it. I think there's something more to it.
Yeah. Do you know what? I have so many questions from this time. For 25 years, it was bottled up inside of me. I couldn't ask anybody anything or tell anything. Now there's so many questions I'd like answered.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there is. You've got, I'll tell you, my hat's off to you for still breathing, because I think if I was in that situation, my heart would have stopped.
Well, you know what comes to when you have people you love and you feel like you have to protect them, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And this goes on a lot, and a lot of people won't come out and talk about it, but there are a handful of people who will, like yourself. And people sometimes look at these as just great stories. And I'm here to say that it's not just a belief. I think there's been enough proof to say that this stuff does go on. It's real. I mean, you got hauntings and then you got evil. And I think what you were dealing with was evil, but I have to say it was a better kind of evil because it did leave.
It was almost like a different level, like an intelligent evil.
Yeah.
If that's possible.
Oh, well, it certainly is, because it was writing in different languages, and it left when you told it had to leave. So, but it only left because the person who was keeping it there was no longer there, right? I mean,
right. It didn't. It knew that someone would get rid of it eventually, and it had an opportunity to be welcomed into someone else's life, so it went with him. Because I guess if someone came and made it leave, it would send it back to where it came from. This way, it didn't have to go back there. It was still free and went with Gary. So.
Yeah, and and nowadays I've seen where people will set up video cameras and try to get video, and it's so hard to tell what's real and what's not anymore.
Oh, I know.
And that's why I love older stories like yours, because we're talking about 1980s. I mean,
right.
Pac-Man was a hit then, so.
Right, and I have the negatives to all the pictures, and my pictures it was a type of camera that dated them.
Well, that's nice. Now, do you have a website set up somewhere where people can?
Yes, it's adeadlyhaunting.com, and people could go there and they can see pictures of the spear and see pictures of the demon writing. The pictures to me are wonderful. I mean, I wish we had some of the technology we have nowadays. When we took the pictures, there was some of the pictures have glare from the mirror. That if I knew the glare was there, I would have took extra pictures, but I didn't know. We just snapped pictures to show people what was going on. Now that I look back at them, I said, well, this could be a better picture. But at the time, you don't think 25 years in the future you're going to be using the pictures.
Yeah, exactly. But, and then you're lucky to even have any pictures because,
I wouldn't if my husband wasn't a hoarder. He just couldn't throw everything away.
Yeah. So now you are free from the entity, and your other family members, they don't report having any problems either.
Nothing. When he left, he said, goodbye, my family. And he left.
Goodbye, my family.
Goodbye, my family.
So
which in a way we're almost like his toy. Like the kid will say, these are my dolls. That's the way I interpreted it. We had, for those 5 years, we belonged to him. He controlled us.
So he would kind of be like that demented little brother who you wouldn't dare get on a ladder next to.
Yeah, he said goodbye, and that was it. Nothing since then, 25 years.
My God. All right, and people could get the book as well, right? You've got the...
Right.
Okay.
You can get it on Amazon, Nook, iTunes, Barnes & Noble. If you go to adeadlyhaunting.com, it'll show you where you can buy it.
All right, great. And what else would you like to add? We still got some time here if you want it. And is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to talk about?
No, there's more stories, but there's just, for 5 years, there's so many things that happened. It's almost impossible to tell them all. But I just want people to know that this entity, to take, they think, they'd like something like this in their life, but you don't. Because even though Mr. Entity was very intelligent, he was evil. And he did very, very evil things. He did terrible things. In conjunction with communicating with me, he was also a very evil entity to be taken very seriously. It's not something you would welcome into your life or think, I'd like something like that, because you don't.
I see. You know what I'd like to do some night is some night have you back, and I would like to also have a couple other past guests who have dealt with Bill Bean. Of course, his family lived in Maryland, and they dealt with demonic entities for 10 years there. I had another guest who also went through this, and it would be interesting just to have the three of you on and maybe compare story, because I'm seeing a lot of similarities. So it seems like, it's almost like these demons got a playbook on the other side.
Yeah, no, I would welcome the chance.
All right. Well, great. Well, I do thank you for being on the show. And by all means, if there's anything you want to get out there, any other websites or Facebook pages?
Just to deadlyhaunting.com. And if you'd like a copy of the book, just send me your email address and your address through email, and I'll mail you a copy of the book.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Deborah, and I appreciate your courage, because it's not easy to come out and talk about these things, because people do throw stones. And I
know they do, but you know what? It feels good to let people know it really happened.
Well, I'm thankful for it, because I love talking about these things, because, I know they're real. The paranormal.
Yes.
But thank you very much, Deborah, and we'll talk to you
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay. All right, everybody. There you have it. Deborah has told you about her story, and certainly there's a whole lot more to it. And I understand it is hard when you're put on the spot. Like sometimes I'll go on another show and they'll ask me about my experiences, and sometimes it is tough. You leave parts out, you leave bits and pieces, because you just, I don't know. It's a lot to think about on spare of the moment. But she does have a book. And the book explains it all. The pictures are in it. And I believe her. I absolutely believe her. And just as I believe Bill Bean, too. I assume that there are people who come out and make these things up. Certainly there is. There's people who come out and make up that they've seen Planet X. There's people who come out and make up that they've been driving around Las Vegas in a UFO. I mean, We've heard it all, but then there's people who really have had these experiences. So, we've got to weed through them. But I believe Deborah. I really do. Well, folks, that's going to do it for us tonight here on the LNM Radio Network, and for us anyways on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I do ask that you keep your eyes posted to the sky, because you never know what you might see. Keep your ears posted to this broadcast, because you never know what you might learn. Good night, everybody, and thanks for listening.